Chapter 400. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 402. Stumbling along the way. Keep moving forward, keep moving forward, keep moving forward. Chin Nan screamed in his heart as if the path was the only path left in front of him. Only by finishing the path would he be able to achieve victory. Read the full article. For more information, visit www. Under the terrifying pressure, he slowly raised his foot and placed it down. It was as if his entire body had sunk into a quagmire. Each step felt like he had just defeated a powerful enemy. 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 2 hours, 4 hours, 3 hours. When Chin Nan reached the 239th step, it took him a total of 12 hours. The scorching sun floating in the sky was replaced by the stars in the pitch-black night sky. The moon emitted a gentle glow in the sky, covering the ground, causing the entire dojo to feel like it was in a dream. Only on the blue flagstones, Chin Nan's figure trembled and swayed continuously. His breathing was rapid like an erupting volcano, while his sweat was constantly being evaporated. Even with a glimpse, one could feel the extreme fatigue from him. Court Master Jean and the rest of the cultivators on the opposite side of the lake did not turn their gazes away during the 12 hours. They stared at Chin Nan's arduous progress, as if their hearts were being stirred. Especially when Chin Nan reached the 239th step, they subconsciously became nervous. The difference between the 239th step and 240th step was like the difference between the heavens and earth. Even a genius like Ing Xuanlong was defeated, while Xue Wuheng only succeeded by sacrificing 3 emperor weapons. He. At that instant, Chen Ying spoke. In my opinion, he will surely succeed in the 240th step. Quick update, refreshing website with fewer advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please give it a good review. As soon as she finished her sentence, she switched the topic. If I'm not mistaken, Chin Nan is about to unleash his martial spirit. After all, he is a genius with an 8th grade Xian-ranked martial spirit. If it weren't for his martial spirit, he would not have been able to complete the 240 steps. TSK, how is it any different from Xue Wuheng's method of advancing by relying on the martial spirit in the 3rd door? When the surrounding cultivators heard this, they frowned but did not refute. In the Kanglan continent, the ranking of martial spirits was extremely strict. When they saw a genius with an 8th grade Xian-ranked martial spirit like Chin Nan, apart from being respectful, they also felt a little uncomfortable. Just as Chen Ying had said, Chin Nan might not have been stronger than them if it weren't for his martial soul's rank. Don't talk nonsense here. Chin Nan is already very good to be able to reach this stage without releasing his martial spirit. Chen Fei glared at his sister. He was slightly regretful that he would not have brought her here if he knew this would happen. Chen Ying is right. If he were to rely on his martial spirit, no matter how many steps he took, he would not be proud of it. Court Master Jean shook his head. The 3rd door was used to train one's will. If he were to rely on external forces, how would he be able to train his will? Meanwhile, on the path made of blue flagstones with the 3rd door, Xue Wuheng did not expect Chin Nan's will to be so shocking, to be able to reach this stage without unleashing his martial spirit, causing him to panic. Chin Nan has an 8th grade Xian-ranked martial spirit. If he were to unleash his martial spirit, wouldn't that mean he would be able to go further? Although it was impossible to achieve 300 steps, as a precaution, he immediately came up with a plan and said with a hollow laugh, Chin Nan, I'm not convinced that you're a peerless genius. If you were to give me an 8th grade Xian-ranked martial spirit, my achievements would be greater than yours. If you have the ability to reach 239 steps without unleashing your martial spirit, I'll be convinced. As soon as he finished speaking, Ing Xuanlong, who was not far away, became enraged. Xue Wuheng, you're too much. Not unleashing your martial spirit, are you kidding me? Why would you unleash your martial spirit and 3 emperor weapons? He had experienced it himself, and he was well aware that if it weren't for his martial spirit being strong enough, the terrifying pressure would have severely injured him. Loser, stop wasting my time, Xue Wuheng swiftly retorted. However, before he could finish his sentence, Qin Nan, who was less than half a zhang away from him, suddenly moved. His breath was thunderous, and his face, which was gradually contorted in pain, was filled with a rare determination. It was as if he could not hear anything around him, as he slowly raised his right foot and moved forward through the muddy pressure. The tiny movement served as a shocking explosion in the eyes of the 2 geniuses, Court Master Jean and the rest, and the crowd of cultivators. No mystical glow was emitted, which meant that Qin Nan was not unleashing his martial spirit. Was he planning to reach the 240th step with his own will? This guy was out of his mind. Qin Nan, watch out! Ing Xuanlong's expression changed tremendously. He could only see Qin Nan's leg being raised less than half an inch when the pressure in the air exploded like a volcano, which was multiplied several times, as if an atavistic beast had descended from the sky. Bang! Qin Nan's worn-out flesh had no chance to resist, as he was knocked down onto the ground. His head, arms, chest, back, legs, etc. were crushed by the pressure, causing blood to splatter everywhere, resulting in a terrifying sight. Ha ha ha! Xue Wuheng was stunned for a moment, before he burst out laughing. Qin Nan, how prideful of you, not unleashing your martial spirit. Who do you think you are? Trying to pass the test without using your martial spirit? Without a martial spirit, you are no different from an ordinary person. Ridiculous, extremely ridiculous. Once the trial of the 3 doors is over, I'll give you a slap in front of the crowd. Ing Xuanlong, Court Master Jean, Chen Fei, Chen Ing, and the crowd of rogue cultivators were stunned. He really did not use his martial spirit. Qin Nan really did not use his martial spirit. Chen Ying's reaction was slightly slower than Xue Wuheng's, who let out a hollow laugh. This Qin Nan is so easy to provoke. But as you can see, without his martial spirit, he is nothing. Court Master Jean, Chen Fei, and the crowd of cultivators shook their heads. Chen Ying's words were unpleasant to the ears, but she was right. Without his martial spirit, Qin Nan was no different from the others, with nothing special about him. However, at this moment, Xue Wuheng and Chen Fei's voices came to an abrupt halt. The crowd, who were shaking their heads in unison, shuddered. Continue. Onward. 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 A weak and hoarse voice could be heard intermittently, which was extremely loud in the moonlit night sky. Qin Nan's flesh, which was covered in blood and had long crumbled, was supported by a will that came out of nowhere. He slowly rose to his feet like an ordinary straw, before he lifted his right foot and stomped forward. Bang! When his feet were less than half an inch away from the ground, the terrifying pressure struck onto Qin Nan's body without mercy, causing Qin Nan's flesh to be knocked down onto the ground. The wounds on his body were enlarged once again, as his blood dyed the blue path red. The pain felt like giant hammers descending from the sky and striking his head. The fatigue from the 239 steps erupted like a volcano, which combined with the pain and devoured Qin Nan's mind, leaving no trace behind. However, amid the pain and fatigue, there was a flicker of light, which, despite being weak, was extremely firm. Continue. Onward. Chapter 401. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 403 Madman Qin Nanbang. The merciless pressure crushed down onto Qin Nan's severely damaged flesh once again, causing him to fall to the ground while vomiting mouthfuls of blood. Countless wounds were healed on his body, causing him to be dyed red with blood. Advertisement. -79. Continue forward, Qin Nan struggled. His face was contorted by the pain, but the determination in his eyes never wavered. He no longer had any strength left, but this determination was the only thing supporting his tattered body, allowing him to rise to his feet once again and challenge his opponent once again. Bang! The pressure descended, suppressing his figure. At that instant, be it Ing Xuanlong, Shui Wuheng, or Court Master Jin and his crew, all the cultivators were dumbfounded by the sight before them. No martial spirit was unleashed. No mystical weapons were used. He relied on his extremely damaged physical body to stand up again and again amidst the indescribable and terrifying pain. His body staggered as he stood up again and again. Even though the sight was extremely terrifying, it was as if an invisible force was emitted from it, causing the scene to become sacred and solemn in the hearts of the crowd. There was no longer any mocking thoughts, as the crowd had their eyes fixed on the figure, falling down again and again, climbing up again and again. Would he succeed? 7 times, 8 times, 9 times. When Qin Nan was crushed for the 10th time, his figure slowly rose from the ground, as if it had consumed a great amount of energy just to stand up. He slowly raised his foot and landed on the ground, as the terrifying pressure crushed down onto him. Almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than ordinary websites, and the updates are faster too. It's all text with no advertisements. Bang! It was as if a huge thunder had exploded in the crowd's hearts. The invisible pressure felt like a huge mountain was descending from the sky, trying to crush Qin Nan's figure into pieces. Their thoughts went blank for a brief moment, and when they collected their thoughts, they immediately witnessed a shocking sight. Qin Nan's figure was bent forward due to the pressure, as an unknown force burst out from his body, resisting the pressure with brute force. Continue forward, forward. The firm look in Qin Nan's eyes flickered continuously. Despite its tiny size, it was not extinguished. It was his extreme stubbornness that allowed him to endure the tremendous pain. Bang! Qin Nan's right foot slowly landed on the ground. As it landed on the ground, it felt like an invisible clap of thunder had struck the ground. 240 steps. Qin Nan had reached the 240th step. Ing Xuanlong, Shui Wuheng, Court Master Jin, Chen Ing, Chen Fei, and the rest of the cultivators lost their composure as their faces were filled with astonishment. He did it! Qin Nan had done it! Without using his martial spirit, he had achieved 240 steps with his own will. With such a result, even if one looked at the past years, what kind of genius could compare to him? But Chen Ing and Shui Wuhan felt as if they had been slapped by a thunderbolt. They felt a burning pain. Weren't they mocking Qin Nan for relying on his martial soul? Weren't they mocking Qin Nan for being useless without his martial soul? What Qin Nan had achieved today, if it were them, they would never be able to do it. At this moment all was silent. Only after a long while did a heated discussion erupt. Hiss, this is a true genius. Who can compare to such willpower? His achievements today were definitely not in vain. The cultivators were utterly astonished by the scene before them, thus they were not stingy with their compliments. He actually did it. Ing Xuanlong could not help but mumble to himself. He felt like it was unwise for Qin Nan to accept the bet with Shui Wuheng. However, he now realized that regardless of whether Qin Nan was being reckless or not, his willpower was worthy of respect. However, at that instant Chen Ing suddenly screamed, "So what if he achieved 240 steps? He even boasted that he would achieve 300 steps. Even if he were to unleash his martial soul, it would be impossible for him to achieve 300 steps. It's impossible." The cultivators who were complimenting Qin Nan frowned their eyebrows with unpleasant looks on their faces. It was true that Qin Nan could not achieve 300 steps, but could you achieve 240 steps? Little sister, watch your words. Chen Fei snapped. Sigh. Court Master Jin shook his head and let out a sigh, Such a shocking willpower would be considered top-notch in the Qinglong sacred area. Unfortunately, he boasted that he would achieve 300 steps. Even if he were to achieve 299 steps in the end, his impulsive decision would not allow him to be remembered forever. Chen Fei frowned his eyebrows. The cultivators at the scene let out sighs as if they were aware of the situation. Judging from the current situation, if Qin Nan were to unleash his martial soul, it would not be a problem for him to achieve the miracle of achieving 260 steps. However, since Qin Nan had given his promise, if he were to fail to fulfill it, he would become a target for the others to attack him. It would be a great pity for him not to be remembered forever. Meanwhile, on the path leading to the triple door, Xue Wuheng wore a dark expression after recovering from the shock, who uttered a mocking laugh. Qin Nan, I can't help but be impressed by your willpower, but you're already half dead after achieving 240 steps. Even if you were to unleash your martial soul, you would not be able to achieve 300 steps. Ha ha ha, there's no need for you to continue. Just give up at once, because no matter how hard you try, you will never be able to achieve 300 steps. Dragon God Ing Xuanlong became enraged and was about to speak when he saw Qin Nan's staggering figure, causing him to remain silent. It was supposed to be a miracle, but due to his slip of the tongue, it was no longer necessary for him to continue. If he were to suffer a serious injury just to train himself, it would not be worth it. At least, he should act according to his capabilities. However, Qin Nan's figure continued to move forward. His brain had long been engulfed by pain and exhaustion. Only the thought of constantly moving forward reverberated in his heart. It felt like someone was complimenting him. It felt like someone was mocking him. No matter what, it had nothing to do with him. He showed no sign of changing his mind, as if he had gone mad. Continue. Forward. As Qin Nan reached the 241st step, a rare occurrence took place. Chapter 402. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 404. The collapse of the body. The first and second doors emitted a colorful glow, which transformed into a lifelike dragon that penetrated Qin Nan's body, causing Qin Nan's figure to be covered in a colorful glow. -79 At that instant, it was as if the terrifying pressure no longer existed, as Qin Nan continued to move forward, one step after another, without any sign of stopping. In the blink of an eye, he had taken 250 steps. The sudden change caused Ing Xuanlong, Xue Wuheng, Court Master Jin, and the rest of the crowd to be astounded. What's going on? Why haven't I seen this colorful glow before? What on earth is going on? Court Master Jin took a moment to collect his thoughts before he took a deep breath and said, in the past, the third-layer martial dominator constructed the 3 doors to train his disciples' will. Now, Qin Nan has completed the 240th step with his own will, granting him the approval of the first and second doors, allowing Qin Nan to advance rapidly as if he was walking on flat ground. The crowd finally came to a realization after hearing the word. Previously, when they were challenging the 3 doors, they had unleashed their martial spirits, and even relied on their mystical weapons. Unlike Qin Nan, they had never relied on their own will. Under the crowd's attention, although Qin Nan's figure was moving at a slow pace like an old man, his speed was unheard of. After over 80 breaths' time, the crowd of cultivators let out screams once again. 270 steps. History has been broken. Not only had Qin Nan taken 270 steps, the colorful glow on his body showed no sign of dissipating. He continued to move forward, albeit at a slower pace. After half the period it took for an incense to burn, everyone inhaled deeply. 299 steps. Qin Nan had reached 299 steps. He was only 1 step away from the 300th step. How is that possible? Chen Ying's expression changed greatly. Could it be that Qin Nan would really take the 300th step? Damn it! Shui Wuhan's face turned extremely ugly. He had never expected that Qin Nan would be able to achieve this result so easily. If Qin Nan really took 300 steps, he would have to compensate 200 primeval stones. In contrast to their thoughts, Court Master Jean and his crew, as well as the crowd of cultivators, stared with their eyes open wide. Unknowingly, their hearts were in their throat. If he could really take 300 steps, it would be a historical moment. Would Qin Nan be able to step out? Under the crowd's gaze, the seven-colored glow on the surface of Qin Nan's body slowly dissipated. His will remained the same as before as he continued to move forward. He slowly raised his right foot and stomped it toward the 300th step. Boom! A thunderous explosion took place in the crowd's hearts. A terrifying pressure could be felt above Qin Nan's head, which transformed into the illusionary figure of a giant pagoda that descended upon Qin Nan's figure with a great force, causing Qin Nan's figure to fall to the ground instantly. Crack, crack! The sound of countless bones breaking resounded. It was incomparably loud and ear-piercing on the cyan flagstone path. This, apart from Court Master Jean and the crowd of cultivators, even Chen Ying and Shui Wuhan, who had mocked Qin Nan earlier, were stunned. With such a terrifying suppression, wouldn't Qin Nan's entire body be crippled? Void! Qian! Shu! Qin Nan mumbled in a muffled voice. His body struggled vigorously as he slowly rose from the ground inch by inch. His right foot moved less than half an inch forward. Bang! The illusionary pagoda crushed downward once again. A cry of agony could be heard echoing in the sky. The suppression caused the wounds on Qin Nan's body to burst open, causing fresh blood to spray into the sky like a fountain. The bones and meridians of his hands, chest, and legs were completely shattered. At that instant, he was no different than a cripple. Qian Shu, to the crowd's astonishment, Qin Nan was not completely defeated. His crippled hands reached out in a trembling manner, supporting his body as he slowly rose from the ground. Bang! The giant pagoda crushed downward mercilessly once again, causing his cries of agony to grow louder, causing his injuries to become even more serious. No matter who it was, their faces had completely changed at this moment. Crazy! Qin Nan was out of his mind. At this rate, he was going to die from the impact. Even Chen Ying and Shui Wuhan could not utter any mocking words. Instead, their hearts were struck by the sight before them. If they were in Qin Nan's shoes, would they ever work so hard? Court Master Jean became joyful as a sudden thought crossed his mind. Qin Nan has yet to unleash his martial spirit. If he were to unleash his martial spirit now, he would be able to complete the 300th step. The words served as a thunderous roar. That's right. They had all forgotten that Qin Nan had yet to unleash his martial spirit. Can he really do it? Chen Ying's face turned slightly pale. Shui Wuhan's face turned incredibly pale as he recalled that Qin Nan still had a martial spirit. Did he lose? Did he really lose this time? Had Qin Nan really done such an unbelievable feat? Under the crowd's gaze, under the starry night sky, Qin Nan's figure, which was crushed onto the ground, began to struggle vigorously, as if he were an unyielding deity uttering a furious roar toward the heavens. Bang! The giant pagoda crushed downward. Bang! 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 A series of crushing noises could be heard. The crowd's expressions changed once again. They clearly remembered that Qin Nan had not unleashed his martial spirit at least 10 times. Could it be that he was not planning to use his martial spirit? Ha ha ha! Shui Wuhan could not help but burst out laughing after seeing this, as he spoke in a scornful tone. Qin Nan, you are a peerless genius. You can't use your martial spirit. If you were to use your martial spirit, what right do you have to be called a peerless genius? We are all impressed by you, and we all respect you. Don't you dare use your martial spirit, as it will destroy your image in our hearts. In Shui Wuhan's opinion, Qin Nan was an arrogant son of a bitch. He was still not satisfied after completing 299 steps, and was planning to complete the 300th step without using his martial spirit? It was simply wishful thinking and daydreaming. Since you are so full of yourself, keep it up and let the giant pagoda crush you to death. Chapter 403. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second/Small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 405. Shattered Body and Bones. Qin Nan's battered body seemed to be filled with boundless willpower. Despite the terrifying torment, he held out his hand, pushed it down onto the ground, and pushed himself up. Visit! Boom! The giant pagoda seemed to be enraged. It shone brightly, and an even more terrifying power erupted, suppressing Qin Nan. Qin Nan's face, which was contorted by the pain, stiffened at that instant, as blood flowed out from his eyes, nose, and ears. His tattered body was deeply sunk into the ground, dyeing the ground red. His last breath was gone. He seemed to be dead. Not good. In that instant, the expression of Court Master Jean, who was on the other side of the lake, changed drastically. He wasn't the only one. Everyone's expression changed drastically. If Qin Nan were to die here because of the triple door, it would be a great loss to the entire Qinglong sacred area. Could it be that a peerless genius of a generation had died just like that? Qin Nan. Ing Sun's expression changed drastically. Shui Wuheng was stunned for a moment, before she burst out laughing. Haha, Qin Nan, that's what you get for overestimating yourself. Do you really think you can complete the 300th step with your will alone? You're courting death. Regardless of how the others felt, he was in a very good mood right now. Once Qin Nan died, his elder brother would be able to become the quasi-holy son. His status would rise greatly, and his future would be limitless. Love go little say, Netku his status would also rise along with the tide. If Qin Nan did not die this time and persevered, then there was no doubt that it would be a disaster for him. 200 primeval stones, he couldn't afford it. At that instant, Qin Nan's lifeless body and his bloody palm shuddered all of a sudden. His blood-red eyes opened with great difficulty. At this moment, the smile on Shui Wuhen's face froze. Everyone was stunned. Qin Nan wasn't dead yet? So what if you're not dead? Even if you release your martial spirit, you still won't be able to pass the 300th step. Shui Wuhen's expression was unsightly as he spoke. However, before he could say the word go, Qin Nan's lips moved slightly, and a voice seemed to be squeezed out from his soul. Continue forward. Yes, continue forward. There were 3 gates, and they existed specifically to train the will of the disciples. Since they existed, it was reasonable. As long as one persevered, they would definitely be able to continue walking. As for why he didn't use his martial spirit, it was because he didn't need to use the 3 gates. Since he didn't need to use his martial soul to complete the 3 gates, why couldn't he do it? If he couldn't do it, he would be no different from the mortals that Shui Wuhen and Chen Ying talked about. Therefore, no matter how painful it was, no matter how miserable it was, persevere. He had to persevere. He didn't need to rely on his martial soul. He had to continue persevering. Even if his flesh was destroyed, he would not give up. Qin Nan reached out his hands and placed them on the ground. He could no longer support his body to stand up. Since that was the case, he would use his hands to hold onto the ground and crawl forward. Even if he had to crawl, he had to complete the 300 steps to reach the end. Bang! However, the illusionary pagoda descended mercilessly onto Qin Nan's figure. Qin Nan's eyes completely lost their color. Although there was still a hint of life remaining in his eyes, he had completely lost his consciousness. On the other side of the lake, everyone's faces were filled with astonishment. When Qin Nan was crawling forward with his hands, a great will burst out from him and landed in their hearts. How much perseverance did he need to be able to do that? Unfortunately, his will was not strong enough, preventing him from completing the 300 steps. Sigh. Court Master Jean let out a sigh and said, "Prepare to save him?" Chen Fei nodded his head and prepared to make his move. Chen Ying let out a sigh of relief as her attractive face was filled with disdain. Although she was impressed by his will, she still hated Qin Nan, thus she could not help but mock him after seeing Qin Nan's failure. "Haha, I've won the battle!" At that instant, Xue Wuheng burst out laughing. Although he was disappointed that Qin Nan was still alive, he was relieved when he thought about how he could slap Qin Nan in the face after the battle. It was impossible for anyone to slap a peerless genius. Whoosh! Following a loud crash, Court Master Jin's figure descended from the sky and grabbed at Qin Nan's figure with his giant hand. After all, Qin Nan possessed the unorthodox pill alchemy, thus they had to ask for Qin Nan's help. Furthermore, Court Master Jin was quite impressed by Qin Nan's will, thus he had decided to save Qin Nan in person. It would take a great effort to treat Qin Nan's injuries. However, his hand suddenly froze. Seeing the scene before him, even he revealed a thick sense of astonishment. Hall Master Jin's actions immediately attracted the attention of many. Many people turned their gazes over, and with a single glance their minds buzzed. Envoy Zhu was dumbfounded. Chen Fei was dumbfounded. Chen Ying was dumbfounded. The crowd was dumbfounded. Xue Wuheng and Ying Xuanlong instinctively glanced toward Qin Nan's direction as if they had discovered something. Their faces stiffened as their eyes were filled with great astonishment. They could only see Qin Nan's body, which had completely fainted, twisting on its own as it slowly moved forward. It was obvious that he had lost his consciousness. However, his body was still moving. It was as if that will of perseverance had been engraved into his soul, into his bones. Even if his body was shattered into pieces and he lost his consciousness, he would never give up. Bang! 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 The giant pagoda floating in midair emitted a series of suppressive blows as if it was enraged. Qin Nan's body received a series of ferocious blows, but in the midst of the continuous twitching, his body slowly moved forward with tiny movements. 1/10 of an inch, 3/10 of an inch, 1/10 of an inch. Qin Nan's bloody hand grabbed the 300th step. Bang! Following a loud crash, the first and second doors emitted a blinding glow, as if countless deities and demons were chanting in excitement for Qin Nan. Chapter 404. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 406. Apology 300 Steps. He really did it. Court Master Jean stood at the entrance of the triple door with a blank expression. Almost all the books you want to read are available. It's more stable than other websites, and the updates are faster too. There are no advertisements. Access. In addition to him, everyone else was lost in their thoughts. When they saw Qin Nan losing his consciousness, they all assumed that it was impossible for Qin Nan to reach 300 steps. Who would have thought that his flesh would not give up even though his mind had collapsed? However, that was not the end of it. Qin Nan's body was like an unyielding warrior, who continued to reach out his bloody palm and crawl forward, 1 step at a time. 1 inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, 301st steps, 302nd steps, 303rd steps. He continued to move forward without giving up. At that instant, everyone was startled. Didn't Qin Nan reach 300 steps? Why was he still moving forward? Little did they know that in Qin Nan's heart, he had only agreed to Xue Wuheng's bet for the sake of Xue Wuheng's 200 primary stones. His goal had never been 300 steps since the beginning. His goal was to continue moving forward, until his bones were shattered into pieces, until his blood flowed endlessly. What was 300 steps to him? He wanted to go further. At that instant it was as if the heavens and earth had fallen silent. It was as if Qin Nan's demon-like will possessed an invisible force, striking the hearts of the crowd. Each step Qin Nan took felt like a clap of thunder exploding in their hearts. Read the article. Everyone's soul began to tremble at that instant. Had they tried their best? Had they ever been as crazy as Qin Nan? They kept complaining because their martial spirits were not powerful enough. They thought that if they had a powerful martial spirit, they would be on par with Qin Nan. But what was the truth? They could not even hold on. What right did they have to complain? Instead of complaining, it was better to be realistic. F***ku. At this time, a furious roar sounded. It turned out to be Xuanlong, whose face had turned ferocious at some point in time. He stood up without hesitation and did not continue to cultivate. Instead, he took a step toward the 240th step. I want to keep going too. The cultivators who were taking part in the trial wore frenzied expressions as they continued to move forward. At that instant, a shocking sight took place on the dojo of the Triple Gate. Everyone felt like they had just been reborn. Boundless energy burst out from their bodies as they charged forward. Why was that? They saw Qin Nan, a person who was more talented than them, and more hard-working than them. What right did they have to not work hard? Fight for your life. Go crazy. In the world of martial arts, one was sailing against the current. If one did not advance, one would fall behind. Love go little say, netwaku if one had the dream of becoming a powerhouse in one's heart, then no matter what, one would never give up. When Xue Wuhan saw this scene, he felt as if his soul had suffered a heavy blow. His face turned pale, and he didn't know why, but he felt so ashamed that he wanted to crawl into a hole to hide himself. What right did he have to mock Qin Nan when he was trying so hard? Let's go. Court Master Jean had returned to the other side of the lake, and said to Chun Fei and the others. Court Master, Envoy Zhu was startled. Wasn't he here to learn the unorthodox pill alchemy from Qin Nan? Chun Fei, I believe Qin Nan has taught you something more important than the unorthodox pill alchemy. Court Master Jean did not look at him, but stared straight at Chun Fei. Chun Fei recovered from his shock. His eyes were burning with a faint flame. Court Master, I got it. Chun Fei nodded his head heavily. In order to defeat his opponent, he had only thought of asking Qin Nan for the unorthodox pill alchemy. However, he had never thought that he could improve his pill alchemy skills with his own efforts. Apologize. Court Master Jean glanced coldly at Chun Ying and said, Apologize to him. He reached out his hand and pointed at the triple door in the distance. Chun Ying's face turned slightly pale. Apologize? Apologize to Qin Nan? Why should she apologize to Qin Nan? Apologize. Court Master Jean is right. You have to apologize. I don't care who you are, you have to apologize. Right at this moment, most of the cultivators in the group of cultivators had angry looks on their faces as they began to yell loudly. Court Master Jean had a calm expression on his face, but a storm was brewing. He said, Did you hear that? You have to apologize as you have mocked Qin Nan. You should respect someone who is willing to work hard for himself. Chun Ying's face turned pale. She hated Qin Nan, thus she was not willing to apologize. However, she could tell that Court Master Jean was about to lose his temper. If she did not apologize, there would be serious consequences. I'm sorry. Chen Ying stood on the lake and lowered her sharp and unkind voice as she spoke to the three doors in a low voice. The surrounding cultivators were aware of her unwillingness. They harumphed and did not pursue the matter further. Let's go. Court Master Jean wore a slightly disappointed expression as he flew into the sky. Chun Fei and the others swiftly followed behind him. It went without saying that Qin Nan was clueless about what had just happened. His body continued to move forward as usual. 359 steps. 360 steps. 380 steps. As the night passed and the sun rose into the sky, Qin Nan's body had crossed the 399th step, reaching the 400th step. At the same time, his body stepped through the second door. The crowd of cultivators inhaled deeply. Crossing the second door, Qin Nan is the first one to do so. Crossing the first door will grant him great benefit. What kind of benefits will Qin Nan receive this time? My blood is boiling. I can't wait to enter the triple door. In the midst of their discussions, the triple door underwent an unexpected change. Each door was engulfed in a mystical glow, which intertwined with one another and formed an illusionary figure in mid-air. The figure was none other than the previous third-layer martial dominator. The illusionary figure lowered its head and glanced at Qin Nan. Its eyes flickered with a hint of admiration before it took a step forward and entered Qin Nan's body. Chapter 405. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 407. The Force of the Tribulation. The 3 doors have a total of 960 steps. Since you're able to reach the 400th step with your own will, there's no need to further prove your determination. Advertisement. Access. An imperious voice exploded in Qin Nan's mind. Following this, a powerful force flowed through Qin Nan's body like a swimming dragon. In just a brief moment, Qin Nan's shattered flesh recovered instantly as his mind gradually awakened. As soon as Qin Nan woke up, he saw a white-haired old man standing proudly in his divine sense, causing him to blurt out in astonishment, "Senior, you are... People call me the third-layer martial dominator." The white-haired old man said with a stern expression, "Previously, when I was attempting to rank up to the martial highness realm, the heavens forbade me from doing so, resulting in my death. Before my death, I obtained the force of the tribulation of the martial highness realm. Today I'll give it to you as a gift." Senior, this, Qin Nan was stunned. In his opinion, the more steps he took, the greater the benefits he would receive. He did not expect the third-layer martial dominator to show up in person and give him the force of the tribulation. There's no need for further words. Remember, don't be arrogant and work hard to succeed. The white-haired old man let out a sigh and did not say anything further. He raised his finger and fired a crimson thunderbolt into Qin Nan's divine sense, causing his figure to disappear. Before Qin Nan could say anything, a loud explosion took place in his divine sense. It turned out that the crimson thunderbolt had suddenly unleashed a tremendous force of thunder, which began to wreak havoc in his divine sense. The thunderbolt was known for its righteous nature, and its destructive force was extremely terrifying. Not to mention, this was the force of the tribulation of the martial highness realm. As soon as it began to wreak havoc, Qin Nan's divine sense began to tremble vigorously, as if it were going to be shattered. Reading in full, this force of thunder is extremely pure, allowing me to absorb it directly. My left eye of the divine god of battle happened to possess a hint of the force of lightning. Hopefully, it will have some new changes after I refine it. Qin Nan mumbled to himself as he withdrew his thoughts and unleashed the 6 dragon-lined golden nascent soul, which emitted a suction force that dragged the thunderous force from his divine sense into his dantian. The tiny figure of the nascent soul opened its mouth and absorbed the thunderous force. Despite the strength of the thunderous force, it could not resist the force. Whoosh! Qin Nan exhaled deeply and began to cultivate in seclusion under the second door. At this moment, Ying Xuanlong had broken through 300 steps on the blue flagstone path of the triple door. The other cultivators had also broken through 260 steps, surpassing the previous record. To put it bluntly, all those who participated in the triple door trial had persevered. Of course, Xue Wuheng, who was ranked 9th on the list of protectors, was actually ranked last. He had tried to break through many times, but because it was too painful, he couldn't persevere. Time gradually passed. A month was gone in the blink of an eye. During this month, The cultivators on the other side of the lake secretly left after knowing that they had no chance of entering the triple door. Meanwhile, the news of Qin Nan achieving 400 steps was spread to the Qinlong sacred area, resulting in an uproar, which was recorded in the minds of the cultivators. Besides that, perhaps it was because of Qin Nan, the disciples of the Qinlong sacred area began to cultivate diligently. Meanwhile, the triple door. Whoosh! Qin Nan's eyes sprang open all of a sudden. Countless crimson thunderbolts flickered within his left eye, together with an aura of judgment. After a month of refinement, he had completely absorbed the force of the tribulation, which resulted in a tremendous change to his left eye of the divine god of battle. Currently, Qin Nan could feel that his left eye of the divine god of battle was able to fire countless crimson thunderbolts with a single thought, which transformed into a killing blow. The left eye of the divine god of battle was no longer only capable of peaking. Its power was displayed for the first time. This power is nothing to be scoffed at. Since there are too many people here, I'll give it a try. Qin Nan withheld the excitement in his heart, and focused his attention on the 6 dragon-lined golden nascent soul. Tribulation of the martial highness realm, cleansing the nascent soul. Qin Nan uttered a roar. In the past month, not only did the force of the tribulation improve his left eye of the divine god of battle, it also cleansed his 6 dragon-lined golden nascent soul. Regardless of whether it was a martial emperor or a martial ancestor, their inner core and nascent soul would need to be cleansed by the tribulation in order to evolve completely. Qin Nan's nascent soul was cleansed by the force of the tribulation of the martial highness realm, resulting in a significant change. Roar! A dragon's roar could be heard all of a sudden, as the nascent soul emitted a golden glow similar to that of a star, which slowly formed into a dragon-shaped golden rune that coiled around the nascent soul. Furthermore, the nascent soul emitted a faint thunderous glow, resulting in a powerful thunderous aura. I've ranked up. Qin Nan's heart was filled with joy. A 7 dragon-lined golden nascent soul. His current strength was equivalent to the 7th layer martial ancestor realm. Bang! At that instant, the blazing sun golden armor body technique, the heart-calming demonic art, his will, and his saber intent in Qin Nan's body began to evolve rapidly following the improvement of his nascent soul, resulting in a significant increase in their strength. Furthermore, they were now filled with the aura of the thunderous aura. For example, once Qin Nan executed the blazing sun golden armor body technique, it would no longer be filled with flames, but thunderous flames. The power of the thunderous flames was even more terrifying. With my current strength, I have no problem facing an 8th layer martial ancestor realm expert. However, this is far from enough. There will surely be many peak martial ancestor realm experts in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. Now that there are only 2 months left, I should focus on improving my strength in these 2 months. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. Inside the 2nd layer door, both the qi of the heavens and earth and the various martial intents were endless, making it a perfect place for him to cultivate in seclusion. Qin Nan immediately began to multitask. While comprehending the unconventional pill method, he was also comprehending his own strength and cultivating. Bailan, I've been sincere to you. Why are you still rejecting me? On the giant island in the sky, a young man with a demonic appearance stood inside a palace and slowly spoke. Each of his words felt like a clap of thunder. As long as Qin Nan is still alive, I won't have the heart to fall in love. Jiang Bailan lowered her eyelids and said, I'll never forget the humiliation from that day. This Qin Nan again. The man became enraged as he snapped. I've already sent my 2nd brother to deal with Qin Nan, so that I can avenge my 3rd brother. Thank you, Brother Xiao. Jiang Bailan said in a pitiful tone, with 2nd young master Xiao and young master Pring here, I believe that even if Qin Nan had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would not be able to survive. The young man let out a hollow laugh and said, Bailan, I'll get straight to the point. I won't say anything if you use me to kill Qin Nan. After all, once Qin Nan is dead, you have to be with me. Otherwise, don't blame me for falling out with you." After saying this, the young man left in an imperious manner. Chapter 406. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 408. Shui Wuji time gradually passed like the flow of water. Advertisement. The updates were so fast. A month had passed in the blink of an eye, and the grand competition of the 16 mountains was about to take place. The entire Qinlong sacred area was bustling with noise and excitement, with decorations everywhere, resulting in a dreamy scene. Many martial ancestor realm cultivators had also entered the various sacred areas to cultivate. The grand competition of the 16 mountains was held once every year, and it was always a grand occasion. The reason being that this grand occasion would attract the attention of countless people. If one were to perform well in it, they would be rewarded by the peak leaders. Meanwhile, inside the 3 doors, Qin Nan, who had been cultivating diligently for over a month, slowly opened his eyes. As expected of the unconventional pill school, its core secret is to refine pills based on one's will without using any techniques. Qin Nan mumbled to himself. After a month of cultivation, he had mastered the basics of the unconventional pill school. It was a chaotic process, to refine pills based on one's will, and to refine pills according to one's will. However, this state was extremely mysterious. Even though Qin Nan had mastered the basics of the unconventional pill school, he still could not achieve it. The grand competition of the 16 mountains is about to take place. Let's settle this first. Qin Nan withdrew his thoughts and glanced toward Shui Wuheng, who was not far away. Shui Wuheng, who was cultivating in seclusion, frowned his eyebrows as if he was aware of something, before his eyes sprang open and he said with a slightly furious expression, "Who's spying on me?" His voice came to a halt as he saw Qin Nan. At that instant, Shui Wuheng immediately realized what Qin Nan was planning to do, causing his eyes to flicker with a hint of panic as he pretended to be calm and said, "Qin Nan, the grand competition of the 16 mountains is about to take place. We'll settle the debt after we're done with our cultivation. You should continue cultivating in seclusion." Quick update. Refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. Please give me a good review. Cut the crap, 200 primary stones, hand them over. Qin Nan's figure rose from the ground as an invisible aura burst out from his body. Was Shui Wuheng trying to act shamelessly? What 200 primeval stones? I have no idea what you're talking about. Shui Wuhen's expression changed. He clenched his teeth and said, "This was 200 origin stones. He couldn't take it out at all, so he had to deny it." "You want to renege on your debt?" Qin Nan's face remained expressionless, but an icy aura was emitted from his body. Shui Wuhen's expression changed slightly. He didn't expect Qin Nan's cultivation to have improved so much in just 2 months. He shook his head and said, "I don't owe you anything, and I'm not going back on my word. Don't you dare lay a hand on me." Shui Wuheng remained as still as a mountain. With his peak martial arts grandmaster cultivation, he was not afraid of Qin Nan at all. "Love go little say ku Shui Wuheng, how could you be so shameless?" At that instant a cold laugh could be heard. It was none other than Ing Xuanlong. How shameless! Trying to bully Qin Nan when he made a bet with Qin Nan. Now that he has lost the bet, he dares to renege on his debt? The martial ancestor realm cultivators woke up with cold looks on their faces. Shui Wuhen's expression changed slightly. He would not be afraid if Qin Nan was alone, but he did not expect everyone to support Qin Nan apart from Ing Xuanlong. "Guys, I have no idea what you're talking about." Shui Wuheng clenched his teeth and said. However, before he could finish, Qin Nan's icy voice could be heard. "You've been targeting me since the beginning. You tried to provoke me and bully me during the bet. Now that you've lost the bet, you dare to go back on your words? I'll make it clear. If you don't hand over the 200 origin stones, don't blame me for being merciless." The words were uttered in a firm tone. For some reason, even though Xue Wuhan's cultivation was clearly stronger than Qin Nan's, his heart was filled with a chill. However, at that instant, a hollow laugh could be heard all of a sudden. "Don't blame you for being merciless? I would like to see how merciless you are." Following the words, a figure slowly approached the crowd. The person was wearing a white robe. His face was extremely cold, and the icy aura emitted from his body was incomparable to Xue Wuhan's, as if everything would be frozen by his presence. Xue Wuji. Ing Xuanlong and the crowd were startled. Xue Wuji was Xue Wuhan's brother, who was ranked second on the custodian ranking. His cultivation was extremely terrifying. "So you're his brother?" Qin Nan's expression remained the same as he calmly said, "Your brother owes me 200 origin stones. Ask him to pay it back, and we'll call it even." Xue Wuji was aware of the bet between Xue Wuhan and Qin Nan. As a matter of fact, he did not think it was appropriate for Xue Wuhan to renege on his debt. However, 200 origin stones was not an ordinary sum, not to mention that the person involved was Qin Nan. Therefore, it was fine for him to renege on his debt. Xue Wuji snapped coldly after hearing this. "Owe you 200 origin stones? Do you have any proof? If you don't, stop trying to slander me." At that instant, Ing Xuanlong and the others collected their thoughts. Xue Wuji was here to back Xue Wuhan up and renege on his debt. This pair of brothers was truly disgusting. "Proof?" Qin Nan burst out laughing. He was laughing out of anger. This pair of brothers was quite interesting. Despite being geniuses, they dared to renege on their debt in such a righteous manner. "All right, we'll let bygones be bygones. Since you're a prospective saint, I'll overlook your offense today," Xue Wuji said haughtily. At that instant, even Ing Xuanlong and the others were infuriated. This Xue Wuhan was too scornful. Not only was he trying to renege on his debt, he even dared to act like he was forgiving, not caring about the crime of offending? What crime of offense? What an offense! Qin Nan could no longer hold it in as his body was completely enraged. He stomped his foot on the ground and lashed out a punch. "I don't care if you're Xue Wuji or Xue Wuhan. You deserve to be beaten up for being so shameless. You dare to attack me?" Xue Wuji's eyes widened slightly, as he did not expect this to happen. He was ranked second on the custodian ranking, thus his cultivation was incredibly powerful. Where did Qin Nan get the courage to attack him? A mere firefly dares to compete with the brilliance of the sun and moon. Xue Wuji was infuriated as he raised his hand. A terrifying icy storm was formed in the center of his palm. With a fling, the entire place changed its color. Chapter 407. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Xue provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 409. Trouble comes to the door, such a powerful icy force. Qin Nan's eyes glistened. Access. The icy force executed by Xue Wuji felt like it originated from the heavens and earth, as if it contained the force of the heavens and earth. Xue Wuhan's strength was incomparable to it. Thunder fire blow. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with a hint of battle intent as he executed the blazing sun golden armor body technique. The rumbling thunder fire instantly devoured the icy storm like the bloody mouth of a beast. The power of the thunder fire was not to be underestimated. Xue Wuji's eyes flickered with astonishment. He did not expect Qin Nan, whose cultivation was only at the peak of the martial emperor realm, to possess such strength. However, he immediately came to a realization that Qin Nan's actual cultivation was most likely around the 6th layer martial ancestor realm. Still a mere ant. Xue Wuji's eyes turned cold as he raised his hand once again. An ice chip slowly rose from his palm. At that instant, the surrounding space turned cold, as if a terrifying snowstorm was approaching. Xuanlong and the rest of the cultivators were utterly stunned. Eye of the tribulation. Qin Nan showed no sign of backing off as his left eye emitted a crazy red thunderbolt. However, at that instant a loud roar could be heard. Stop it! Whoosh whoosh! Over 10 figures arrived from the sky, who turned out to be the custodians of the 8th peak, whose cultivations had all reached the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Among the custodians, a middle-aged man took a glimpse at the situation before him and inhaled deeply. Both Qin Nan and Xue Wuji were reputable figures, thus it was unwise to offend them. However, he clearly knew that if they were allowed to continue fighting, it would result in a negative impact. Gentlemen, please give me some face and stop fighting here. How's that? The middle-aged man calmed his thoughts and spoke in a slow tone. Who do you think you are? Xue Wuji showed no mercy. Piss off, or I'll take care of you too. The middle-aged man's expression changed slightly. The expressions of the other emissaries also turned ugly. At that instant, a yell could be heard coming from the rift. Xue Wuji, why are you so mad? Let's just forget about what happened today. A martial emperor? Xue Wuji held his breath. He now understood that the incident here had most likely attracted the attention of the powerful cultivators of the 8th peak. If he were to continue, it would not bring him any benefit. All right, I'll give you some face. Xue Wuji crushed the ice in his hand and glanced down at Qin Nan. Consider yourself lucky today, I'll let you go for now. However, you better remember that if you dare to participate in the grand competition of the 16 mountains, I'll break all your limbs. I'll let you know that sometimes, a high-level martial soul is nothing. Xue Wuji was extremely smart. After saying this, he immediately grabbed Xue Wuheng's figure and flew into the sky. Love go little Saith Ku. After seeing this, the force of the tribulation in Qin Nan's eyes dissipated. He could not help but admit that even though his cultivation had improved significantly in the past 3 months, there was still a huge gap between his strength and Xue Wuji's. Strength, I still need to improve my strength. Qin Nan clenched his fists tightly as his eyes spat out flames. His strength was still too weak. Otherwise, Xue Wuji would not dare to act so scornfully. Thank you, everyone. Qin Nan calmed his thoughts and brought his fists together toward Xuanlong, the rest of the cultivators, and the custodians of the 8th peak. At the beginning, these people were all on his side. Don't mention it, it's all Xue Wuji's fault. Xuanlong and the others shook their heads while feeling slightly impressed by Qin Nan in their hearts. If they were in Qin Nan's shoes, although they would be furious, they would not dare to interfere. Qin Nan chatted with the crowd for a while. After agreeing with Xuanlong about the grand competition of the 16 mountains, he did not stay at the 8th peak any longer and headed straight to the Duanmu mountain. For the grand competition of the 16 mountains, the disciples who had registered to take part in it were required to gather at their respective peaks. After that, they would be led by the envoy of the peak to the Duanmu mountain, where the competition would officially begin. When Qin Nan returned to the Duanmu mountain, many figures had already gathered at the dojo of the Duanmu mountain. These figures were all martial ancestor realm cultivators, but not a single martial emperor realm disciple could be seen. Qin Nan. Leading the crowd, Fang Jian's face was filled with a hint of joy when he saw Qin Nan. As expected, Qin Nan was really going to take part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. If that was the case, the Duanmu mountain would most likely come first this time. If they were to come first, it would be a great honor, which would bring endless benefits to Fang Jian. Qin Nan is here? I heard that he has been cultivating for 3 months at the 3rd layer door. Why is his strength still at the peak of the martial emperor realm? The entire dojo was immersed in an uproar, as every disciple glanced at Qin Nan with complicated expressions. Junior brother Qin Nan, I've been waiting for you for a long time. At that instant, a grudging voice could be heard, which turned out to be senior brother Zhao Feng. At that instant, Zhao Feng was holding a horsetail whisk in his hand and wearing a robe, causing his handsomeness to disappear. Beside him stood Jiao Shi and Xiao Feiping, whose faces were filled with sweetness instead of the usual demeanor of a genius. Qin Nan was about to speak when he saw Zhao Feng, who instantly had goosebumps all over his body, causing his face to darken. He had forgotten something important. Zhao Feng's cultivation was at the peak of the martial ancestor realm, thus he was allowed to take part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. I must be careful of him during the grand competition of the 16 mountains. Qin Nan mumbled to himself as he walked toward Feng Jian without glancing at Zhao Feng. However, at that instant, a mocking voice could be heard. "Oh my, so this is the legendary Qin Nan? It's such an honor to finally meet you in person." A middle-aged man wearing a golden robe with an imperious aura could be seen walking toward Qin Nan. His arrival caused the expressions of many disciples to change. Even Zhao Feng's face turned cold. Feng Jian's expression darkened as he said, "Murong Xiang, what are you doing here? The grand competition of the 16 mountains has nothing to do with you." Murong Xiang? Qin Nan was startled. He had no idea who this person was. At that instant, Feng Jian transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. "Qin Nan, there are a few vice peak leaders on our Duanmu mountain, who are the future successors of the Duanmu mountain. This Murong Xiang is the son of peak leader Murong, who is ranked first among the vice peak leaders. This person is extremely disdainful and vicious. He must be up to no good this time." A thought flashed across Qin Nan's mind after hearing this. Previously, the Duanmu Mountain Lord had already told him that if he were to take part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains, someone would be targeting him. Did that mean they were going to make their move now? As if to prove Qin Nan's speculation, Murong Xiang let out a sinister laugh and said, "Feng Jian, I'm sorry, but I've just received an order. I'm one of the envoys leading the team. As the leader, I have the right to be here. Not only that, I also believe that Qin Nan is not qualified to take part in the competition." Chapter 408. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 410. Let's go together. The envoys in charge referred to the 1 or 2 envoys appointed by each peak to lead the cultivators in their respective peaks to explain, encourage, etc. Love go little say, chew dollar, cotton, flour, candy little say. That's fast. Under normal circumstances, the envoys in charge would not interfere with the grand competition of the 16 mountains, unless the people of other factions were able to sneak into the competition. It was obvious that this Murong Xiang was purposely picking on Qin Nan with his words. Before Qin Nan could speak, Feng Jian snapped, "Murong Xiang, as the envoy in charge, what right do you have to stop Qin Nan from taking part in the competition?" "Hee, Feng Jian, what are you yelling for? Open your dog eyes and see what this is." Murong Xiang let out a disdainful laugh as he raised his hand. A badge floated above his palm, with the word Mu written in a huge font in the middle of it. As soon as the badge was revealed, the crowd was startled. The badge belonged to Vice Peak Leader Murong of the Duanmu Mountain. It was as if Murong Xiang was here in person. A cold grin appeared on Feng Jian's face. "Love go little sake." Chu, although he had no idea why this Murong Xiang and Vice Peak Leader Murong were trying to harm Qin Nan, they had underestimated Qin Nan. Behind Qin Nan stood the Duanmu Mountain Lord and the other peak leaders. Trying to disqualify Qin Nan from taking part in the competition with a mere badge of a Vice Peak Leader was out of their minds. Before Feng Jian could speak, Murong Xiang raised his tone and said, "Although the grand competition of the 16 mountains is only a competition between cultivators below the martial dominator realm, it is still a competition between the main peaks. As the peerless genius of our Duanmu mountain, Qin Nan's cultivation is only at the peak martial emperor realm. If he were to be defeated in the grand competition of the 16 mountains, how humiliating would it be for our Duanmu mountain? Therefore, we can't let Qin Nan take part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. After hearing this, the eyes of the cultivators flickered, but none of them spoke. Reading the whole thing, Murong Xiang's words could be said to be reasonable, making it impossible for people to refute. Fang Jian's grin grew thicker as he said, Murong Xiang, stop pretending. I only know that Qin Nan is following the rules to participate in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. Even Vice Peak Leader Murong has no right to stop him from taking part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. Murong Xiang's eyes sharpened. He did not expect this Fang Jian to still protect Qin Nan after he had displayed his badge. However, this caused him to feel even more furious. Qin Nan was indeed a peerless genius, but he was the son of the first vice peak leader of the Duanmu mountain. His status was on par with Qin Nan's. Besides, it was his father's order to suppress Qin Nan. Was it really that difficult for his father to suppress a mere Qin Nan? You can take part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains, but you have to pass my test first. Murong Xiang withheld his anger and said in a cold tone. Fang Jian was about to retaliate when Qin Nan's calm voice could be heard. Envoy Murong Xiang, what kind of test are you planning to give me? Qin Nan, you don't have to worry about it. Fang Jian immediately transmitted his voice after hearing his words. Don't worry, someone is trying to pick on me. Let's see what they are planning to do first. Qin Nan replied with a calm expression. Murong Xiang was overjoyed after hearing Qin Nan's words. Qin Nan, don't misunderstand. I'm only doing this for the sake of the entire Duanmu mountain. How about this? I've picked 3 geniuses. If you are able to defeat one of them, I'll consider your strength qualified to take part in the competition. As soon as he finished speaking, 3 young men immediately flew out from the crowd. As soon as the 3 young men appeared, the crowd was astounded. These 3 young men all possessed cultivations of the 6th layer martial ancestor realm. Furthermore, they were quite famous in the Duanmu mountain, who were ranked in the top 30 geniuses. They immediately realized that Murong Xiang had already set up a trap for Qin Nan. Murong Xiang, you, Fang Jian became enraged. Was Qin Nan trying to defeat these 3? That was simply impossible, all right? How long had it been since Qin Nan ranked up to the martial emperor realm? Murong Xiang was not going to wait for him to lose his temper. He decided to strike while the iron was hot and said in a disdainful tone, What now? I was told that Qin Nan managed to achieve 400 steps in the 3-layered door and obtained great benefit. Is that still not enough to defeat a 6th-layer martial ancestor realm cultivator? If that's the case, why bother taking part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains? Wouldn't that be a disgrace to the Duanmu mountain? In addition to Fang Jian, the crowd of cultivators shook their heads too. These 3 geniuses were no ordinary geniuses. Although Qin Nan was a peerless genius who had obtained great benefits from the 3-layered door, Qin Nan's cultivation was only at the peak martial emperor realm after all. No matter how outstanding he was, there was no way he would stand a chance against a 6th-layer martial ancestor realm cultivator. The outcome of the competition was obvious. Sigh, I wonder how Qin Nan is going to handle it? Murong Xiang is so cunning. Even an ordinary 7th-layer martial ancestor realm cultivator would not stand a chance against him, let alone Qin Nan. Many of the cultivators let out sighs. However, before Murong Xiang could finish his sentence, Qin Nan suddenly spoke while the crowd was immersed in their discussions. All right, we'll do as you say. However, before the competition, I have a request. The words served as a great shock to the crowd. Qin Nan, you, Fang Jianshan was panicking. He could not afford to be impulsive. If Qin Nan were to lose, not only would he not be able to take part in the competition, he would also be humiliated. Murong Xiang was slightly startled before he collected his thoughts. His eyes flickered with joy as he blurted out, tell me, what's your request? Tell me what it is, I'll try my best to satisfy you." "Is that so?" Qin Nan burst out laughing all of a sudden as he pointed his finger at the 3 cultivators and said, "My request is simple. I don't want to fight one-on-one in the competition." "Don't want to fight one-on-one?" Murong Xiang was startled. Chapter 409. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 411. Suppression with a single move 3 at the same time? In addition to Murong Xiang, everyone at the scene was dumbfounded. Read the full article. These were 3 6th-layer martial ancestor realm cultivators, who were ranked in the top 30 on the custodian ranking. One would need at least a cultivation of the 8th-layer martial ancestor realm to challenge them. Qin Nan was only a mere peak martial emperor realm cultivator. No matter how outstanding he was, it was impossible for his cultivation to be equivalent to the 8th-layer martial ancestor realm, right? At that instant, everyone could not help but feel ridiculous in their hearts, as if an ant was challenging a giant to a duel. Qin Nan. Fang Jianshan's expression changed tremendously as he was about to speak. "Ha ha ha!" Murong Xiang burst out laughing and interrupted him. "Qin Nan, since you've asked for it, I'll fulfill your request and challenge them to a duel. Of course, if you're able to defeat all 3 of them, you'll be considered the winner of the duel." Qin Nan nodded his head with an expressionless face. He glanced toward the 3 cultivators as a stream of battle intent was emitted from his body. "Take this." The 3 cultivators had already made a deal with Murong Xiang in private. However, they did not expect Qin Nan to be so scornful. They immediately let out a roar and surrounded him in a triangle formation. The 3 of them had been in the Qinglong sacred area for many years, thus they had cooperated with one another countless times. Therefore, when they dashed forward, it was a powerful formation that was executed. The surrounding cultivators were astounded. Is that the 3 Jade formation? According to the rumors, once the formation is executed, the person inside it will lose their sense of direction. Marshmallow, it seems like they have prepared such a powerful attack. The 3 Jade formation was a formation where the auras and cultivations of the 3 cultivators would resonate with one another and execute the same technique to produce a 3-sided illusion, causing everything to be confused. Even an 8th-layer martial ancestor realm expert would not be able to execute it without an outstanding eye technique and formation skill. Damn it! Fang Jian's face turned livid. Releasing such a grand formation to deal with Qin Nan, it seemed like he wanted to severely injure Qin Nan. Whoosh! The Tri-Jade formation formed and instantly enveloped Qin Nan's figure. Void! Yen. Kill! The 3 cultivators took up 3 different positions. They exchanged glances with one another and performed the same hand seal. Each hand seal emitted a mystical glow that connected with one another, gradually forming an ancient character Yen above the formation. Each stroke of the character was filled with an ancient aura, as if it was extremely heavy. Love go little say, the surrounding cultivators were all shocked. This is a killing move. This killing move is specially designed to deal with 8th-level martial ancestor realm cultivators. Do they want to kill Qin Nan? They initially thought the 3 cultivators were only planning to teach Qin Nan a lesson, but they did not expect them to execute such a terrifying killing move, the Void Killing. How bold! Fang Jian's expression changed tremendously as the suppression of the martial dominator realm burst out from his body. Envoy Fang Jian, what do you mean by this? This is a duel, you shouldn't interfere. Murong Xiang wore a smile as he grabbed with both hands, summoning 2 giant golden whips in the air like 2 dragons, which summoned countless illusionary figures that encapsulated Fang Jian's figure. You! Fang Jian became enraged. Murong Xiang's eyes flickered sinisterly as he spoke. Envoy Fang Jian, don't worry, they won't use their killing moves. They would at most inflict serious injuries on Qin Nan. It's just a duel, it's not a big deal to inflict serious injuries on him. When Qin Nan had challenged them to a duel, Murong Xiang had immediately come up with a vicious plan in his mind. He wanted them to beat the crap out of Qin Nan. Even if someone were to be infuriated, Murong Xiang could still excuse himself by saying that this Qin Nan was too scornful, and that he was the one who initiated the duel, thus it had nothing to do with him. As such, he did not feel pressured at all. However, before Murong Xiang could finish his sentence, a terrifying aura was emitted from the three jade formation all of a sudden. The crowd of cultivators with sharp senses were startled upon hearing this. The three cultivators who were executing the three jade formation could clearly sense the aura, as if an atavistic ferocious beast had been awakened. Kill! The expressions of the three cultivators changed greatly. Without hesitation, they released the full power of the illusory killing spell and suppressed it. Bang! Just at this moment, the terrifying thunderous flames within the Tri-Jade formation suddenly surged out like the wrath of the heavens. The so-called Tri-Jade formation was directly shattered into nothingness. Both Murong Xiang and the cultivators at the scene stared with their eyes open wide. They had never expected that such a powerful Tri-Jade formation would be so easily destroyed. At that instant, they could only see Qin Nan raising his head at the center of the formation. His black hair danced wildly despite the absence of wind, while a Tenjong long cloak made of thunderous flames swept wildly in the air, emitting a raging howl. It felt like they were not looking at Qin Nan, but a raging thunderous god. Break! Qin Nan uttered a roar as his body was engulfed in thunderous flames, which gathered at the tip of his fist and lashed out at the word yen. Bang! The crowd could only see the word yen being shattered into pieces, as the thunderous flames transformed into a raging ocean that collided with the figures of the three cultivators, sending them flying. A destructive force, as if they had been destroyed. The three cultivators who were ranked in the top 30 of the custodians were defeated by Qin Nan with a mere cultivation of the peak martial emperor realm with a single punch. At that instant, the entire dojo of the Duanmu mountain fell into a dead silence. Murong Xiang, Fang Jian, and the cultivators at the scene stared with their eyes open wide, their faces filled with astonishment. What was going on? What had just happened? How had Qin Nan defeated them with a single attack? Phew! Qin Nan exhaled deeply, as if he was finally able to relax his muscles and bones after a long time. The powerful thunderous flames emitting from his body turned silent, while the aura of his cultivation remained at the peak martial emperor realm. I'm sorry, I won the duel by accident. Sorry for embarrassing myself. Qin Nan brought his fists together and scanned the crowd, before his gaze landed on Murong Xiang's figure with a sincere expression. Murong Xiang's breathing halted at that instant. Chapter 410. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 412. Jiang Taitian. The crowd glanced at Murong Xiang with a strange look in their eyes. 79XS. Didn't you say that Qin Nan wasn't allowed to participate in the competition? Didn't you look down on Qin Nan? What about now? Murong Xiang's face stiffened. To him, the gazes of the crowd were like numerous sharp swords that stabbed into his face, causing his face to feel as if it was on fire. Cough cough, I did not expect junior brother Qin Nan to possess such outstanding strength. Senior brother wishes you a great result in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. Murong Xiang felt extremely awkward, who forced the words out before fleeing the scene, as he was too ashamed to stay any longer. Nice. A grin appeared on Fang Jian's face upon seeing this. He could not help but admit that Qin Nan's performance was too shocking. No one had expected his true strength to be this powerful. The cultivators at the scene made a mental note to not provoke Qin Nan unless absolutely necessary. Since Murong Xiang has shown himself, the enemy will most likely show himself later on. Qin Nan mumbled to himself with a calm heart. Following this, at the dojo of the Duanmu Mountain, the cultivators were chatting with one another. Qin Nan stood alone among the crowd, observing his surroundings. Bang! At that instant, following a loud explosion, the two envoys of Tsamu Peak and the cultivators arrived. Love Go Little Say Ku amongst this group of cultivators was a girl around the age of 15 or 16. She had a fine appearance, fair skin, a rather good figure, and an extraordinary bearing, and it caused many cultivators on Duanmu Peak to look over in unison. That's the new genius of Tsamu Peak, who calls herself the princess. Her talent in pill alchemy is unmatched even by Chen Fei. How beautiful! She would be a beauty in 2 or 3 years. Qin Nan stood in the crowd with a faint smile on his face. This girl was naturally Princess Meow Meow. Quick update, the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most. You must give me a good review. The cultivators of Tsamu Peak do not possess outstanding strength, but many of them are able to refine poisonous pills, granting them a terrifying strength. Qin Nan's left eye flickered with a thunderous glow. There were a total of 100 martial ancestor realm cultivators from Tsamu Peak, who were all 4th grade Xing-ranked pill alchemists and above. Following this, the cultivators from the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th peaks arrived one after another. Looking down from the sky, the martial arts field of Duanmu Mountain was filled with people. Every cultivator had a strong aura and was a veteran of hundreds of battles. An unprecedented grand occasion of the Qinglong sacred area slowly began. Xue Wuji, brother Xue Wuheng, and those three, and these, Qin Nan was no longer the center of attention among the crowd, as he was no longer the center of attention. However, his eyes were able to scan the cultivators and memorize the faces of the powerful cultivators. Currently, among the first 7 peaks, there were a total of 47 cultivators with a stronger cultivation than him. Not long after, the cultivators from the 8th to the 15th peaks all arrived at the venue, causing the number of martial ancestor realm cultivators on Duanmu Mountain to increase to over 1,000. How significant was it to have over 1,000 cultivators? In the past, there were less than 3 martial ancestor realm experts in the Luaha Kingdom. In other words, a quarter of the martial ancestor realm cultivators of the lower district had gathered here today. Qin Nan's figure tensed. There were 83 cultivators among the 15 peaks with a stronger cultivation than him. Qin Nan. At that instant, a voice could be heard, causing Qin Nan to turn around and see Sima Kong approaching. Sima Kong had been stirring a great chaos in the Qinglong sacred area for a month, as he had earned countless benefits from it, causing his face to be filled with high spirits and a hint of redness. The grand competition of the 16 peaks this time is not going to be simple. A peerless genius will be taking part in it. You and I will have to work together when the time comes. Sima Kong went straight to the point, as he said with a stern look. A peerless genius? Qin Nan was slightly startled. At that instant, a series of synchronized footsteps could be heard, which sounded like a giant beating a drum. The loud noise caused the entire dojo to tremble vigorously, causing it to fall silent. A young man with an icy expression could be seen leading the way with a formidable aura, like the emperor of a kingdom. Behind him were 16 knights wearing crimson armor. The entire martial arts training field was filled with the sound of people sucking in cold air. Why is it him? Oh my God, Yang Taitian is here! Yang Taitian even brought his 16 crimson knights with him. Is he planning to kill a martial dominator? Motherf *Ker, he's already made such a scene. The first place of this competition is definitely going to be his. The expressions of all the cultivators were shaken. Qin Nan's left eye emitted a thunderous glow as he observed Yang Taitian's figure. He immediately discovered that this Yang Taitian's cultivation was extremely terrifying. Although he was only at the peak of the martial ancestor realm, the aura inside his body was twice as strong as Xuewuji's. Furthermore, the 16 Crimson Knights were all peak martial ancestor realm cultivators, who had practiced some kind of martial art, allowing them to merge with Yang Taitian's aura at any time. Qin Nan, this Yang Taitian is not to be underestimated. According to the rumors, he is the son of the peak leader of the 16th peak. Sima Kong transmitted his voice. The peak leader of the 16th peak is the most mysterious peak leader in our Qinglong sacred area. It's said that he is closely related to a certain faction in the upper district, causing his status to be on par with the Duanmu Mountain Lord. Furthermore, this Yang Taitian and his 16 Crimson Knights could even slay a first-layer martial dominator realm expert if they were to use their full strength. In this grand competition of the 16 mountains, he will be the strongest opponent, Sima Kong explained. The son of the peak leader of the 16th peak? Killing a martial dominator? Qin Nan's eyes flickered. This Yang Taitian is indeed extraordinary. Are you planning to team up with me? Qin Nan glanced at Sima Kong and asked. Of course, with our current strength, there's no way we can defeat Yang Taitian in a one-on-one battle. However, if we were to team up, we might stand a chance against Yang Taitian, Sima Kong said in a serious tone. However, before he could finish, a piercing gaze landed onto Qin Nan's figure all of a sudden. An invisible murderous aura was emitted instantly. Qin Nan's expression darkened. He had guessed it right. Sima Kong's figure stiffened slightly, before he turned his head around and saw Yang Taitian staring coldly at him with an obvious murderous intent. Sima Kong was instantly stunned. What the hell was going on? Why was Yang Taitian targeting them? Qin Nan's eyes flickered. He suddenly realized that when Yang Taitian was unleashing his murderous intent, a faint murderous intent was emitted from another direction. He turned his head around and saw a skinny young man among the crowd staring at him with a smile. Qin Nan's left eye flickered as his expression changed slightly. This young man's cultivation was on par with Yang Taitian's. Who's this guy? It seems like he's not on the custodian ranking. If he was, he would have been recognized by now. Besides, no one on the custodian ranking is on par with Yang Taitian. Qin Nan quickly pondered. In the midst of his thoughts, a question popped up in his heart. Who exactly was it that could be so generous as to order two peerless heaven's favorites to specifically target him? At that instant, a series of explosions took place above the Duanmu mountain. Chapter 4:11. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 4:13. The first glimpse of a sinister plot. Several figures appeared in the sky. Each of them was blurry and had an extraordinary aura. A love go little say, chew. That was fast. In just a brief moment, 16 figures appeared. In other words, all the peak leaders had shown up for the grand competition of the 16 mountains. So this is Yang Fengzhu of the 16th mountain? Qin Nan unleashed his left eye and glanced at one of the figures. Unfortunately, the figure's aura was extremely mysterious, like a layer of white mist, preventing him from peeking through it. Yang Fengzhu's figure lowered his head and glanced at Qin Nan as if he was aware of his presence, causing Qin Nan's figure to stiffen instantly, as if he had been exposed. Sima Kong's face turned extremely pale as he sensed something too. This Qin Nan was such a scammer. He had initially planned to team up with him, but who would have thought that this guy would have a conflict with Yang Taitian, and it seemed like he had a conflict with the other geniuses too. And now, he had a conflict with the peak leaders of the 16th mountain. What was wrong with this Qin Nan? Why was the entire world his enemy? Luckily, Yang Fengzhu's gaze did not linger for too long. It was as if his eyes were filled with a hint of a deeper meaning, before he shifted his gaze away, allowing Qin Nan and Sima Kong to let out relieved sighs. Love go little say. Chu, it was not a pleasant feeling to be targeted by a martial highness. Qin Nan. At that instant, the Duanmu Mountain Lord's voice echoed in Qin Nan's mind. The investigation has concluded. This Yang Fengzhu is the culprit in the Qinglong sacred area. He is targeting you and us at the same time. Is it really him? Qin Nan narrowed his eyes. He had only suspected it, but he didn't expect it to be true. He immediately asked, Senior, why is he targeting me? At that instant, Peak Leader Zhang's voice could be heard. A few hundred years ago, when Tang Qingshan entered the Ocean of Death, he ended up being hunted by a powerful faction in the lower district, which resulted in the death of our junior sister. This Yang Fengzhu is only one of the people in this faction. The grand competition of the 16 mountains was about to take place, and Qin Nan was among the crowd, listening to the secrets from a few hundred years ago. Now that Tang Qingshan has appeared again, he has attracted a lot of attention, including you. Do you remember when you were in the Xianling clan, Tang Qingshan asked you to test your martial skill talent? When the Ocean of Death is activated, the secret is closely related to one's martial skill talent. As such, your performance in the selection of the 2 sacred areas had attracted the attention of these people. In order to prevent you from ruining their plans at the Ocean of Death, they are planning to kill you before you reach the Ocean of Death. After hearing Peak Leader Zhang's words, Qin Nan immediately came to a realization. Love go little say, Chu for example, there was a treasure or a fortunate encounter at the Ocean of Death, which had been targeted by a powerful faction in the lower district for a few hundred years. Previously, Tang Qingshan had been hunted by this faction because he had discovered the secret, resulting in the death of their junior sister. Now, a few hundred years had passed, but this faction had yet to acquire the treasure or the fortunate encounter. However, due to Qin Nan's outstanding performance, he had been targeted by them, thus they were planning to kill Qin Nan to prevent any future troubles. Qin Nan, we were the ones who started this. You don't have to be involved. If you choose to back out now, we won't blame you. The Duanmu Mountain Lord and Peak Leader Zhang said in a serious tone. The secrets related to the Ocean of Death were beyond their imagination. Seniors, there's no need to say that. I don't care who the enemy is, I'll still go to the Ocean of Death. Qin Nan's expression remained the same. Faction? Enemy? Bring it on. He was not afraid. Very well. The Duanmu Mountain Lord hesitated for a moment before saying, a few hundred years ago, we were only a bunch of martial dominators. We had no chance against these factions. Now that a few hundred years have passed, we are no longer the same as before. Don't you worry, we'll stop the experts of these factions for you. As for the geniuses they are sending, you'll have to rely on yourself. After hearing this, Qin Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. Only geniuses? That was exactly what he wanted. The reason why he had come to the 2 sacred areas was so that he could have a great battle with the geniuses. The 2 peak leaders did not transmit their voices to Qin Nan. Qin Nan collected his thoughts before he turned towards Sima Kong and said, Are we still working together? Working together my ass. Sima Kong felt like vomiting blood. He could not wait to distance himself from Qin Nan, but it was obvious that Yang Taitian was treating him as an enemy. Even if he were to distance himself from Qin Nan, he would still be hunted down by Yang Taitian. It's fine. Qin Nan shook his head. As the man with 5 black lines of the trading alliance, Sima Kong would not believe that this guy was scared. Meanwhile, as the peak leaders arrived, the Duanmu Mountain Lord, who was leading the group, slowly spoke. His thunderous voice echoed throughout the Duanmu Mountain. The Qinglong sacred area holds the grand competition of the 16 mountains every year. The purpose of the competition is to allow the disciples of the mountains to compete against each other. That being said, no one is allowed to kill in the competition. Otherwise, no matter who it is, they will be punished according to the rules of the Qinglong sacred area. The cultivators nodded their heads. Unlike the Feiyang sacred area, the Qinglong sacred area was not surprised by the rules. Open the Qinglong mystical ground now. Once you enter the mystical ground, all the participants are not allowed to move. Otherwise, you will be disqualified, the Duanmu mountain lord said. Following his words, the other 15 peak leaders raised their hand. A badge appeared on each of their palms. The badge was extremely mysterious, as it was the peak leader badge that only the peak leaders possessed. With 16 peak leader badges, one would be able to access the Qinglong sacred area's mystical ground. However, at that instant a rare occurrence took place. The sky above the Duanmu mountain turned dark as a rift was torn apart, from which a figure slowly appeared. The person was none other than the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. Sacred leader? The peak leaders were stunned. The sacred leader had never appeared in the previous grand competition of the 16 mountains. Why was he here today? The crowd of cultivators was stunned. This was the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, who was rarely seen in the past 10 years. He would only appear when a peerless genius like Qin Nan appeared, or when something significant happened to the Qinglong sacred area. Chapter 412. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 414. The Enemy of the Crowd Inheriting Everything? Even the 16 peak masters were stunned by what they had just witnessed. 79xs. Everyone knew that in the lower district, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon and sacred leader Feiyang were the strongest cultivators, both of whom had reached the martial sacred realm. Even in the upper district, a cultivator with such a cultivation could be considered an authority. If one were to acquire the succession of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, even if the rank of their martial spirits was not high enough, they would still be able to become an expert. The entire Duanmu mountain fell silent for a few breaths' time, before an uproar broke out. The succession of the sacred leader. The succession of the sacred leader, I must acquire it. Screw it. I'll give it my all this time. I've already acquired an emperor weapon last year. I must acquire the succession of the sacred leader this year. Everyone's eyes burned passionately. What is he trying to do? Qin Nan wore a confused look. In his opinion, this sacred Lord Blue Dragon was too mysterious to be an ordinary person. Why would he suddenly reveal his succession all of a sudden? However, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon suddenly glanced toward Qin Nan and spoke with a voice that echoed in the ears of the crowd. Work hard, you have a higher chance of acquiring it than the others. As soon as those words were spoken, everyone's gaze turned toward Zhang Xian. The atmosphere of the place changed tremendously. At the beginning, Qin Nan did not receive much attention in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. However, after hearing the words uttered by the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, everyone immediately remembered him. What did he mean by having a higher chance of acquiring it? In other words, it was highly possible that Qin Nan knew more about the succession of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. Qin Nan's face instantly turned dark. He could sense that among the thousands of cultivators at the scene, at least half of them were staring at him with evil intentions. Full text reading. In other words, in this grand competition of the 16 mountains, it was highly possible that he would encounter the same situation as when he participated in the trial of versatility at the Xianling clan, being hunted by everyone. Wasn't the sacred Lord Blue Dragon doing this on purpose? Qin Nan could not help but look at the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. Unexpectedly, the latter just smiled and did not realize his mistake at all. He even had an expression that said, "I'm doing this for your own good." Before Qin Nan could react, the sacred Lord Blue Dragon took a step forward and disappeared into thin air. Damn it! Qin Nan clenched his fist. This old fellow, he spoke so beautifully back then, but now he actually did such a thing. Qin Nan, we definitely have to cooperate. I don't have any other request, just a 50-50 split. Sima Kong's eyes lit up. He no longer had any regret. Cooperate my ass, Qin Nan almost burst out cursing. He had no idea about the succession of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon. However, at that instant, he suddenly sensed a stronger murderous intent in the eyes of Yang Taitian and the mysterious young man. The words uttered by the sacred Lord Blue Dragon just now will cause me to be targeted by countless cultivators in the grand competition of the 16 mountains. However, under normal circumstances they would not harm me easily. Most importantly, this Jiang Taitian and the mysterious young man are under the orders of Yang Fengzhu. With this incident, their murderous intent toward me will be even stronger. Qin Nan calmed his thoughts and began to analyze the situation. As the 16th peak leader of the Qinglong sacred area, Yang Fengzhu was ranked last among the peak leaders, but he was related to the upper district. Even the Duanmu mountain lord and peak leader Zhang were not allowed to harm him, which served as an indication of how powerful this Yang Fengzhu was. Since he had personally ordered Yang Taitian and the others to come up with such a plan, it was surely something extraordinary. I'll deal with whatever comes my way. I've never offended them before, but since they are trying to kill me in advance for the sake of the secrets of the Ocean of Death, I won't show any mercy to them either. Qin Nan's eyes became firm. His personality had always been like this. If someone were to harm him, he would return the favor tenfold. Besides, after calming his thoughts, Qin Nan realized that there must be a reason for the sacred Lord Blue Dragon's sudden action. He could not say for sure that the sacred Lord Blue Dragon was trying to harm him. Sima Kong, do you have any idea what the grand competition of the 16 mountains is about? What exactly is the Qinglong mystical ground? Qin Nan calmed his thoughts and asked. He had only taken part in the competition for the rewards, thus he was clueless about the rules. Only by knowing yourself and your enemy would you be able to win every battle. So you've agreed to cooperate? Sima Kong's face was filled with joy as he blurted out, "This Qinglong mystical ground is the place where the sacred Lord Blue Dragon cultivates for generations, with countless successions and fortunate encounters. After the sacred Lord Blue Dragon took over, he turned the Qinglong mystical ground into a place to train his disciples. There are countless beasts here, and we'll need to slay the beasts to earn points. Once we've accumulated enough points, we'll be able to unlock the successions." Qin Nan's eyes glistened. The rules were quite simple, which was to slay the beasts and accumulate points to unlock the successions. Sima Kong paused for a moment before he let out a chuckle and said, "Of course we can also rob the beasts to earn points." Qin Nan glanced at him without saying anything. Rob the beasts to earn points? He would never take the initiative to do that. Activate the Qinglong mystical ground. At that instant, the Duanmu mountain lord in midair uttered a roar as he took out his peak leader badges. 16 peak leader badges floated in midair, emitting rays of light that intertwined with one another, forming an atavistic formation on the dojo. This ancient formation was not a teleportation formation. Instead, it was like a huge key that was inserted into the void. Bang! Following a loud crash, the crowd could only see the rift within 10 li shattering into pieces, revealing countless rays of light, as if a door to another world had been opened. The cultivators withdrew their gazes from Qin Nan and withdrew their thoughts, preparing to enter the Qinglong mystical ground. Qin Nan. At that instant, a loud roar could be heard all of a sudden. The one uttering the roar turned out to be Yang Taitian. This sudden scene was like a clap of thunder in the quiet training grounds. All the cultivators present looked over, their eyes filled with curiosity. "What's the matter, senior brother?" Qin Nan's expression remained the same, showing no sign of fear. Nothing much. Yang Taitian raised his head and placed his hands behind him, as if he was a noble, as he spoke to an ordinary person. I only want to tell you that you should be careful when you enter the Qinglong mystical ground, as I have a habit of crippling my opponents whenever I attack them. Apart from that, Yang Taitian glanced at the crowd while emitting an imperious aura. I'm going to challenge junior brother Qin Nan in the Qinglong mystical ground. If anyone is interested, feel free to become my ally. Many among the crowd were startled after hearing the words. Yang Taitian's words were a declaration of war against Qin Nan. Qin Nan's expression remained the same. Mo Li, Lin Zixiao, and the others had already used the same trick before, thus he was not too bothered by it. Qin Nan, what should we do when the time comes? Sima Kong felt his head aching. At this rate, they would end up as enemies to the entire crowd. Nothing. Qin Nan calmly said. Kid, aren't you scared at all? Sima Kong stared with his eyes open wide. I'm not scared at all. Qin Nan shook his head and slowly said, Think about it, 1 enemy, 2 enemies, 3 enemies, or even a group of enemies, what's there to be scared of? At most, we'll fight 1 if 1 comes, or 2 if 2 come. If a group comes, we'll bury them all. Chapter 413. A genius will remember love in 1 second divided by little? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 415. Time running out. Sima Kong stared with his eyes open wide. This guy is really a battle maniac. However, he could feel his blood boiling after hearing such idiotic words. Love go little say W Chu access to. All disciples enter the barrier. The Duanmu Mountain Lord uttered a roar. Many of the cultivators who had participated in the trial of the Qinglong mystical ground immediately flew into the light barrier. The other disciples followed suit after seeing this. Qin Nan glanced at Princess Miao Miao and the others, before he entered the barrier with a kick. A moment later, the light barrier disappeared. I wonder who will come first in the trial? I believe Yang Taitian has the highest chance. One of the peak leaders slowly spoke. Yeah, I agree. Congratulations to Yang Fengzhu. Another peak leader said. Thanks, everyone. Yang Fengzhu was a middle-aged man with a head of silver hair. Each strand of his hair was filled with a boundless murderous intent, causing one to feel terrified. His gaze landed onto the Duanmu Mountain Lord's figure as he said with a calm smile, Duanmu Mountain Lord, it seems like you are quite fond of that Qin Nan, right? I'm sorry, but my son is not fond of Qin Nan. Love go little say Wchu read the whole thing. The eyes of the surrounding peak leaders flickered slightly. In the entire Qinglong sacred area, only Yang Fengzhu dared to talk to the Duanmu Mountain Lord in such a manner. Peak leader Zhang was the first to speak as he smilingly said, It's normal for disciples to have conflicts with one another. It's reasonable for Yang Taitian to challenge Qin Nan since he's a peerless genius. However, I hope Yang Taitian won't suffer too much of a shock. Shock? With Qin Nan's current cultivation, he will surely be crushed to death. Yang Fengzhu immediately turned hostile and said with a hollow laugh. Is that so? The Duanmu Mountain Lord squinted his eyes. It felt like his eyes were flickering with lightning. There's nothing else to talk about. I do have a question. Yang Fengzhu, how many disciples will the Eastern Continent be recruiting in 2 years' time? Peak leader of Tsamu Peak switched the topic. As he thought, the attention of the peak leaders immediately. There were 5 continents in the upper region, and the lower region bordered the east region. In the eastern continent there were 4 great factions, which greatly surpassed the 2 sacred areas of the sacred area. Every 5 years, the 4 great powers would come to the 2 holy lands to select disciples. Every time, the number of people selected was very limited. Edited by, translated by soon edited by, edited every time the disciples were selected, the two sacred areas and the peak leaders would compete with each other. As Yang Fengzhu was closely related to the Tao-seeking mountain, one of the four great factions of the eastern continent, no one dared to offend him in the Qinglong sacred area. It was said that Yang Fengzhu was the son of one of the elders of the Tao-seeking mountain. There are quite a lot of spots available. It all depends on the performance of the two sacred areas, Yang Fengzhu said with a calm smile after a brief pause. The eyes of the other peak leaders flickered slightly. Now that Yang Fengzhu had a conflict with the Duanmu Mountain Lord and the others, they clearly knew that Yang Fengzhu was trying to force them to choose a side. Trying to acquire a spot to the upper district? Then stand on my side. Hee. Do you think the Tao-seeking mountain is recruiting disciples based on mere connections? Don't think you're the mountain leader of the Tao-seeking mountain. Peak leader Zhang said with a calm tone. You're right. Yang Fengzhu's eyes flickered with disdain as he said, It's true that I can't let everyone enter, but at least I'm sure that the kid with the name Qin Nan, for example? A peerless genius? Even a peerless genius would not be able to enter the Tao-seeking mountain. The surrounding peak leaders nodded slightly. Although they did not believe that Yang Fengzhu had the ability to let everyone enter the Tao-seeking mountain, it was more than enough for Yang Fengzhu to stop anyone from entering the Tao-seeking mountain. Yang Fengzhu paused for a moment before his eyes flickered with a hint of disdain. Of course, the Qinglong mystical ground is extremely dangerous. It's highly possible that Qin Nan will die there. Who knows? It's getting late, I'll be leaving first. After saying this, his figure disappeared with a flicker. The other peak leaders were startled. Did that mean Yang Fengzhu was planning to kill Qin Nan? Since when was the conflict between Yang Fengzhu and the Duanmu Mountain Lord this serious? Let's go see Master. The Duanmu Mountain Lord and peak leader Zhang were startled. They took a deep breath and entered a residence deep inside the Qinglong sacred area. It was as if the sacred Lord Blue Dragon had already predicted their arrival. Although his figure was not tall, it felt like he was supporting the heavens and earth. Master, peak leader Zhang was about to speak. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon waved his hand and interrupted him, before saying with a thoughtful look, I know what you're going to ask. I have other plans regarding my succession. As for Yang Fengzhu's killing blow, don't worry. Qin Nan will be fine. The Duanmu Mountain Lord and peak leader Zhang were slightly startled. Since when did the sacred Lord Blue Dragon have such trust in Qin Nan? Upon having this thought, they immediately realized that the sacred Lord Blue Dragon had shown up when Qin Nan was in danger. It was rather unusual. Although Qin Nan was a peerless genius, a genius who had yet to reach his full potential was nothing. Those people have been plotting against the ocean of death for so many years, and they have been plotting against me for so many years, yet they still refuse to give up. Therefore, we'll settle everything with Qin Nan as the center of attention. The eyes of the Qinglong sacred area flickered coldly as he said, I don't care what kind of demon it is, we'll bury them all. Roger. The Duanmu Mountain Lord and peak leader Zhang both emitted a tremendous murderous aura. Over the past 100 years, they had been tormented by countless sufferings. Now that Qin Nan had shown himself, it was time for them to strike back. That being said, the Duanmu Mountain Lord and peak leader Zhang had forgotten the meaning behind the sacred Lord Blue Dragon's words of plotting against me for so many years. You're dismissed. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon gave the order to leave. The Duanmu Mountain Lord and peak leader Zhang immediately left the place. The sacred Lord Blue Dragon stood in the residence and sat on the stairs. His white hair drifted in the wind, while his murderous, sculpted face was filled with a hint of fatigue. A deathly aura was emitted from his body. A sigh reverberated through the courtyard. Chapter 4:14. Sagnet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 4:16 Six-Eyed Demonic Ape Shush. Qin Nan's figure descended from the sky and landed on the ground, before he raised his head and scanned his surroundings. Love Go Little Say Quick Update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please give me a good review. The sky here was blue, and the clouds were pink. It was a bizarre sight to behold. Surrounding the area was a lush forest, filled with roars and howls. It was a place filled with danger. Shit, this Qinglong mystical ground is randomly teleported. Qin Nan's expression changed slightly. He was clueless about the size of the Qinglong mystical ground, the restrictions, the map, etc. He still needed Sima Kong to tell him, but now there was no one within 999 zhang of him. Buzz. A crisp sound could be heard, as an invisible formation was activated inside the Qinglong badge. Qin Nan inspected the badge with his divine sense. The contents of the badge had undergone a tremendous change. Ranking of beasts. Ranking of cultivators. Ranking of fortuitous encounters. Qin Nan was startled after seeing the three rankings, before he came to a realization. The Qinglong sacred area had anticipated that many disciples would not be familiar with the Qinglong mystical ground, thus they had prepared the maps and information beforehand and placed them inside the Qinglong scroll. Once the disciples entered the mystical ground, the formation would be activated automatically. Let's take a look at these three rankings. Qin Nan calmed his thoughts and glanced at the ranking of beasts. Number 1. Sky Thunderous Beast, Half-Martial Highness Realm, able to control the thunder of stars, extremely dangerous. There are a total of 13 Sky Thunderous Beasts in the Qinglong mystical ground. Number 2. Fiery Winged Bird, Half-Martial Highness Realm, rumor has it that it possesses the bloodline of the Vermilion Bird, able to control the force of flames, extremely dangerous. There are a total of 9 of them in the Qinglong mystical ground. Number 3. Icy Fang Tiger, Half-Martial Highness Realm, the natural enemy of the Fiery Winged Bird, able to control the force of ice. Extremely dangerous beasts that live in pack. There are a total of 37 of them in the Qinglong mystical ground. Number 4. There are a total of 100 beasts listed on the ranking of beasts. Advertisement. The beasts on the list had all reached the Martial Dominator realm. Furthermore, most of them were beasts that lived in herds, and were labeled as extremely dangerous. This Azure Dragon's secret territory is really dangerous. Qin Nan let out a sigh as he glanced at the cultivator ranking. First, Yang Taitian, 103 points. Second, Shui Wuji, 37 points. Third, Shui Wuhan, 9 points. Number 4. This cultivator ranking list is specifically for accumulating results. Qin Nan nodded. The competition had just begun, and everyone's points were still not very high. Look at this adventure ranking list. Qin Nan's gaze swept over. The first fortunate encounter, the succession of the current sacred leader Qinglong. To acquire it, one would need to spend 999,999 points to purchase the map. Apart from that, one would also need to pay 88,888 points to qualify for the competition. Second adventure, the inheritance of peak leader Zhang. You need to spend 999,999 points to buy the map. You need to pay 33,333 palace points to qualify for the competition. Third adventure, the 3 moves of the Divine Swordsman. Extremely powerful. You need to spend 77,777 points to buy the map. Number 4. There were over 100 of them listed. Among the hundreds of fortunate encounters, there were artifacts, elixirs, successions, moves, martial skills, etc., which would dazzle one's eyes, but at the same time, cause one's heart to burn with passion. The reason being that these fortunate encounters were all extraordinary, which would greatly improve one's strength upon acquiring them. This azure dragon's secret territory is indeed a treasure trove. Qin Nan's eyes flickered slightly. He was not interested in the successions of the sacred Lord Blue Dragon, Peak Leader Zhang, or the Divine Swordsman, as the price was too high to be worth it. Instead, he was quite interested in the tombs of experts and the caves of beasts. This was because it was possible that there were enormous treasures hidden in these places, with abundant primordial stones. It's a pity that Princess Meow Meow isn't here. Otherwise, with her capabilities, she would be able to discover the treasure trove without having to hunt the beasts. Qin Nan let out a sigh. He had tried to use the sound-conducting badges, and discovered that they were all sealed off by an invisible force. Screw it, I'll start hunting beasts too. Qin Nan shook his head and entered the woods. His left eye emitted a thunderous glow as it scanned the area within 3 li from him. Within this 3 li, there were only a few peak martial Emperor Realm beasts, which would not give him many points if he were to kill them. With a kick, Qin Nan's figure disappeared into the woods at the speed of lightning. The observation ability of his left eye was fully utilized, allowing him to observe everything within the hut. A 5th-layer martial ancestor realm beast. Qin Nan halted in his tracks. 2 li away from him was a huge river. The water of the river had a dreamy blue color, and a beast elephant with a long trunk and hair the color of blood was hunting the weaker beasts in the river for food. Qin Nan was slightly overjoyed. This 5th-layer martial ancestor realm beast was quite valuable, which was equivalent to a few hundred points. Without hesitation, he stomped his foot on the ground and dashed forward. The expression of the blood-furred demonic elephant changed drastically, revealing a deep sense of fear. However, at that instant a rare occurrence took place. Above the river, a ferocious gust of wind was produced, causing countless trees to tremble and leaves to dance in the air. Suddenly, 6 tiny lines appeared in the calm void. These lines extended with a crackling sound until they were the size of a fist. Light flashed in the darkness, and a series of vertical blue eyes appeared. The 6 eyes were formed from the void, which rotated at the same time and locked their gazes onto Qin Nan's figure, while emitting a powerful eye technique. What's this? Qin Nan's expression changed slightly. He came to a stop, before opening his mouth and spitting out thunderous flames, which burned the murderous intent into ashes. Facing this, the beast elephant swung its trunk and uttered a cry, before its hooves ignited into flames and dashed into the woods. Its figure rapidly changed its position and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Who's the culprit? Qin Nan's expression darkened. That was a 5th-layer martial ancestor realm beast. Now that it had escaped, it was no wonder that he felt unpleasant. What confused him the most was that he had just arrived at the Qinglong mystical ground. How did these 6 eyes appear? Qin Nan. The 6 eyes stared down at Qin Nan from above as a voice could be heard. You didn't expect this, did you? My martial spirit is the 6-eyed demonic ape martial spirit. Once unleashed, no matter where you run to, I can still summon these 6 eyes and kill you. Yang Taitian's cold voice could be heard. It was as if Qin Nan was only an insignificant ant in his eyes. 6-eyed demonic ape martial spirit? Qin Nan was slightly startled. He sharply noticed something suspicious. This Qinglong mystical ground was extremely vast, covering an area with a circumference of at least a few 10,000 li. Regardless of how powerful this 6-eyed demonic ape martial spirit was, there was no way it could detect his presence in this vast mystical ground, right? If that was the case, the eye technique of this 6-eyed demonic ape martial spirit was even stronger than the left eye of the divine god of battle. However, before he could finish his thoughts, Yang Taitian's cold voice could be heard once again. 6-eyed mystical technique, heavenly lightning and earthly fire, kill. The 6 eyes in midair instantly emitted a brilliant glow, summoning rumbling thunderbolts and blazing flames on the ground, turning the area within 10 meters of Qin Nan into a living hell. The countless beasts in the woods uttered terrified cries, as if they were aware of something, causing their figures to flee in all directions. It was obvious how terrifying the power of the 6 eyes was. 6 eyes? You dare to be so smug with such an eye technique? Break! Qin Nan uttered a roar. His left eye emitted a thunderous glow, which fired a crimson thunderbolt at the 6 eyes. Bang, 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 a series of explosions took place, as the 6 eyes were shattered into pieces. How is this possible? Why do you have such a powerful eye technique too? Yang Taitian let out a scream. Everyone knew that he possessed an 8th-grade Xian-ranked martial spirit. Even though it took him more than half of his eye technique to travel across the rift, the remaining half of his eye technique was still powerful enough to knock an 8th-layer martial ancestor realm expert backward. Qin Nan rolled his eyes. Now was not the time for him to duel with Yang Taitian, thus he immediately prepared to leave the place with a flicker. However, Yang Taitian's icy voice could be heard once again. I didn't expect you to have such a powerful eye technique. But that's fine, as my eyes are eternal and indestructible. Chapter 4:15. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 4:17. The First Clash. What's going on? Qin Nan's expression changed. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. His left eye of the divine god of battle had absorbed the force of the tribulation of the martial highness realm, granting it the power of the judgment of the heavens and earth, capable of destroying all evil beings. However, the 6 eyes before him were not affected at all? Could it be that they were immortal? Left eye of the divine god of battle, tribulation, heavenly punishment. Qin Nan made up his mind at the speed of lightning. A tremendous thunderous glow was emitted from his left eye, which instantly destroyed the 6 eyes. Such a powerful eye technique. Yang Taitian's shocked voice could be heard. Such a destructive force was on par with his own, however, you won't be able to destroy my 6 godly eyes. Yang Taitian's tone was filled with a hint of pride. The 6 eyes appeared once again in midair, staring at Qin Nan. With a kick, Qin Nan's figure was engulfed in thunderous flames as he exerted his strength to the limit, shattering the trees into pieces as he dashed forward at a terrifying speed. However, it was as if the 6 eyes in midair were locked onto Qin Nan's figure. No matter how fast Qin Nan's speed was, they continued to follow behind him. Ha 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 ha! Yang Taitian's prideful laughter filled the heavens and earth. Qin Nan's expression darkened slightly, but there was no sign of panic on his face. He continued to dash into the distance with all his might. Meanwhile, 100 li away from Qin Nan, on top of a small mountain, Yang Taitian's robe flapped wildly as 8 mystical rays were emitted from his back, together with a 6-eyed ape standing between the heavens and earth, emitting a strange aura. Qin Nan, are you trying to run away? That's impossible. Yang Taitian licked his lips. Previously at the Duanmu mountain, Qin Nan had fought against the 3 6th-layer martial ancestor realm cultivators. Although he had defeated his opponents, Yang Taitian had managed to acquire Qin Nan's aura from the 3 6th-layer martial ancestor realm cultivators. His 6-eyed demonic ape was able to lock onto a cultivator through their aura. No matter how they fled, they would not be able to escape. Just wait for your death. A ferocious look flickered across Yang Taitian's eyes as his figure dashed forward like a ferocious dragon. If one were to look down from the sky, they would discover that Qin Nan's figure was flickering left and right, hidden and reappearing. Despite that, the 6 eyes in the sky were still following him closely. In addition, Yang Taitian, who was 100 li away, was rapidly approaching him through the eyes, closing the distance between the two. After all, Yang Taitian was the #1 genius on the Protector's roll. His martial cultivation was already extraordinary. Qin Nan was far from being comparable. I can't let this continue, Qin Nan quickly pondered. With the 6 eyes locking onto him, Yang Taitian would surely be chasing after him. He would catch up to him in no time. Although Qin Nan was not afraid of anything, he was aware of his own capabilities. If he were to face Yang Taitian now, he would surely lose the battle, as the difference between their strengths was too great. I can unleash the 7 dragon-lined golden nascent soul and the strongest attack of my left eye of the divine god of battle. However, the chance of destroying the 6 eyes is not high. I can also unleash the divine battle spirit, which is able to suppress martial spirit. However, the 6 eyes before me are the power of my martial spirit, thus it would be difficult to suppress them. Could it be that I can alter my appearance with the mortal appearance-changing technique? Countless thoughts flashed across Qin Nan's mind. The only option was to use the mortal appearance-changing technique, but it was quite risky, as the 6 eyes were watching him from above. No matter how he tried to alter his appearance, Yang Taitian would be able to see through it. Is there no other way? Qin Nan held his breath, as his eyes were engulfed in flames. If there's no other way, let's fight. Who cares if he's Yang Taitian? If he's forced into a corner, let's fight until the end. Calm down, calm down. Now is not the time to go all out. With my current speed, I'm afraid it will take some time for Yang Taitian to catch up with me. No one can predict what will happen during this period of time. Qin Nan took a deep breath. Even the divine god of battle should not act recklessly. 80 li, 70 li, 60 li, 50 li. When the distance reached 30 li, the 6 eyes in the sky suddenly emitted a brilliant glow, as countless arcane runes appeared deep inside the eyes. Apart from that, an illusionary figure of a demonic ape could be seen floating in mid-air. As the distance between them decreased, the power of the 6 godly eyes became even more terrifying. 6 eyes shoot. Yang Taitian's roar could be heard coming from the rift. He was currently 30 li away from Qin Nan as he activated his 6 eyes. Each of his eyes emitted a terrifying destructive force, which were fired in Qin Nan's direction like raindrops. The area within 50 meters of Qin Nan's figure was encapsulated within the light. Heart-calming demonic vanquishing. Qin Nan halted his movement and uttered a roar, summoning a giant bell that struck the air, shattering the light beams into pieces. Even so, his footsteps were hindered. In the short span of a few breaths, the distance between him and Yang Taitian had shrunk to a mere 25 miles. Shoot to kill. A hint of excitement could be heard from Yang Taitian's voice as his 6 eyes continued to emit countless beams of light. Crap, he's trying to delay me. Qin Nan's expression changed slightly as he scanned his surroundings. The surroundings were completely flat, thus there was no place for him to hide. It seems like there's a forest here? Qin Nan suddenly discovered that there was an ancient forest 5 li away from him. He immediately made up his mind. It seemed like there was no way to get rid of Yang Taitian temporarily. His only option was to enter the forest and try to overtake him with the help of the terrain. Thunderous fire blow. Qin Nan uttered a roar as thunderous fire burned everything in its path, before his figure sprang forward. Trying to enter the forest? With his 6 eyes, Yang Taitian had already discovered the magnificent forest. Furthermore, he discovered that the forest was extremely strange, as if there were countless powerful auras fluctuating within it. No way, I can't let him escape into the forest. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if he were to attract the attention of those on the beast ranking. Yang Taitian was no idiot as he was ranked first on the custodian's ranking. He immediately understood the situation and took out a talisman, before breaking it into pieces. A hideous grin appeared on his face. Let's eliminate Qin Nan at the entrance of the forest. The talisman was engulfed in a blinding glow, which transformed into a tornado that encapsulated Yang Taitian's figure, causing his speed to skyrocket. The talisman was an emperor weapon with a one-time effect, known as the Exploding Sky Talisman, which was able to increase one's speed by 5 times. Qin Nan, who was advancing forward while resisting the attacks from the 6 eyes, suddenly heard a buzzing sound coming from behind him. With his outstanding vision, he immediately saw Yang Taitian dashing toward him like a tornado. The distance between them was only 15 li. Shit! Qin Nan was startled as he uttered a roar, causing the 7 ancient sabers to be fired into the sky, which emitted a ferocious saber intent that encapsulated the 6 eyes, allowing him to make his way toward the ancient forest at a rapid pace. Bang! 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 A series of explosions rang out on the flat ground. Crimson blood psychic escape. Yang Taitian wore a determined look after seeing this, as he proceeded to burn his blood essence to execute a forbidden technique, further increasing his speed. The distance between the two of them was only 10 miles. This Yang Taitian is no ordinary person. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he increased his speed. He was now only 2 li away from the ancient forest. With his full strength, he was able to cross the 2 li in less than 10 breaths' time. 6 eyes space teleportation. The 6 eyes in the sky suddenly emitted a beam of light, which transformed into a giant hand that grabbed Yang Taitian's figure and pulled him forward, causing him to travel 5 li away. The distance between him and Qin Nan was now less than 5 li. Qin Nan die. Chapter 416. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 418. Bloody Serpents Cave. Qin Nan could feel his hair standing on end as a strong sense of danger rose in his heart. For more information, www. At that instant, he suddenly saw 3 figures a few hundred meters away from him. He was dumbfounded after taking a closer look. Among the 3 figures, one of them was none other than Zhao Feng. Apart from that, the other 2 beside him had the same appearance as Qin Nan, but their auras were clearly Jiao Shi and Xiao Feipeng's. Zhao Feng was in a great mood. He had just acquired the appearance-changing pill, which allowed the 2 to change their appearances into Qin Nan's. Although it was only a change in appearance, it was quite comforting to him. He came to this forest in order to go to a certain land of fortuitous encounters and prepare to obtain an even more terrifying forbidden medicine. The path of true love was long and arduous. Zhao Feng suddenly sensed a terrifying aura coming from not far ahead. He turned his head around and instantly saw Qin Nan, causing his face to be filled with joy. Junior brother Qin Nan, why are you here? Did you come here specifically to find me? After saying this, he immediately saw Yang Taitian, who was executing his killing blow. This caused his pleasant mood to turn cold instantly. Yang Taitian, how bold of you to try to kill junior brother Qin Nan. Zhao Feng's eyes spat out flames as his figure sprang into the air while unleashing his aura. His usual frivolous appearance was nowhere to be seen, as if he had transformed into an atavistic ferocious being. Each of his attacks was accompanied by the power of the sun and the moon. Zhao Feng, it's you. Yang Taitian's expression changed tremendously. Although he was ranked first on the custodian ranking, Zhao Feng was the first senior brother of the Duanmu Mountain. If it weren't for Zhao Feng's obsession with homosexuality, his talent would not be any weaker than Yang Taitian's. Junior brother Qin Nan, you should leave first. Zhao Feng bellowed. Read the article. Qin Nan was startled. He did not expect Zhao Feng to help him. Don't worry about me. This thief can't do anything to me. Zhao Feng didn't even turn his head as he said, me helping you has nothing to do with our love. I'm a senior from Duanmu Mountain. I can't watch my junior get bullied. Qin Nan's lips twisted. The first half of the sentence was disgusting to him, but the second half was quite touching. He scanned Zhao Fang's cultivation with his left eye of the divine god of battle, before he took a deep breath and said, "Senior brother Zhao Fang, thanks for your help. I'll surely repay your kindness when I've found the pills." After saying this, he tiptoed and quickly left Reed. With Zhao Fang's cultivation, although he was unable to defeat Yang Taitian, he would not have any problem leaving the place in one piece. Qin Nan, it doesn't matter where you run. You will never be able to escape from my 6 god eyes. Yang Taitian let out a long howl. The words caused Qin Nan's figure to stiffen. The power of the 6 god eyes was indeed terrifying. Even if he were to run far away, it would still be useless. What bullshit 6 god eyes? Trying to be smug here? Qin Nan, over here. At that instant, a disdainful voice could be heard, which turned out to be Sima Kong. Sima Kong had changed his attire. He was wearing a Taoist robe and holding a compass in his hand, giving him an otherworldly appearance. Qin Nan, this 6 god eyes is tracking you based on your aura. Sima Kong let out a chuckle and said, "I'll help you get rid of it now." A horsetail whisk appeared in Sima Kong's left hand. With a flick, countless red water droplets landed on Qin Nan's figure. Qin Nan had no time to ponder further as he stomped his foot. As expected, it was as if the 6 god eyes in the sky had lost its sight. Qin Nan was right below it, but it was unable to detect his presence. "Who are you?" Yang Taitian's expression changed tremendously. No one knew the secret of his 6 god eyes. How did this guy know about it? "Qin Nan, come with me. We'll discuss this later." Sima Kong did not answer his question. With a kick, he swiftly entered the ancient forest. Qin Nan followed him without hesitation. When the two figures disappeared from Yang Taitian's sight, he almost vomited blood due to anger. If Qin Nan managed to escape this time, it would take him a long time to catch him. At that instant, Sima Kong's voice could be heard from the forest once again. "Hee, I forgot to tell you, I'm your master Sima." Yang Taitian's expression stiffened. In the ancient forest, Qin Nan and Sima Kong were moving at a rapid pace. "How did you find me?" Qin Nan swiftly asked. The Qinglong mystical ground was extremely vast. It was extremely difficult to find a single person. "Of course it's because of this." Sima Kong glanced at the geomantic compass in his hand and let out a proud laugh. "This artifact is able to observe all living things within 3,000 li from me. Since your aura is so unique, it's easy for me to find you." "I see." Qin Nan nodded his head, before his eyes flickered with excitement. If Sima Kong had such a treasure, didn't that mean he could use it to find Princess Miao Miao? "I've stumbled into Princess Miao Miao before, but she's currently somewhere far away, so we can't find her." Sima Kong seemed to be able to read Qin Nan's mind as he said in an impressed tone, "This princess is not as simple as you think. She managed to rob 3 fortunate encounters as soon as we entered the Qinglong mystical ground, leaving me with no luck." Speaking of this, his face was filled with a hint of depression. Initially, he had planned to make a name for himself in the Qinglong mystical ground, but he did not expect Princess Miao Miao to know the locations of most of the fortunate encounters too. Qin Nan nodded his head and took a deep breath. There was no need for him to worry too much about Princess Miao Miao, but he realized one thing after being hunted by Yang Taitian. His strength was still too weak. He had to improve his strength as soon as possible. If it weren't for Zhao Fang and Sima Kong's timely arrival, it would not have been that easy for him to escape from Yang Taitian's pursuit. "Qin Nan, I'm here to cooperate with you." Sima Kong's eyes flickered as he said, "There's a fortunate encounter here, known as the Cave of the Bloody Serpent. This Bloody Serpent used to be a peak martial dominator realm presence in the Qinglong mystical ground. Now that it has fallen, there are still various treasures inside its cave." "The Cave of the Bloody Serpent?" Qin Nan was startled. He had seen this fortunate encounter on the ranking before, ranked 26. Besides that, he had also read the description of the fortunate encounter. The bloody serpent possessed the bloodline of the true dragon, thus it was naturally fond of treasures, especially gemstones. As such, it had collected a huge amount of primary stones before its death. However, the fortunate encounter required over 30,000 points to purchase the map, thus Qin Nan could only read the description. To his surprise, Sima Kong knew its exact location. The Qinglong mystical ground is the place where the sacred Lord Blue Dragon cultivate. It's Sima Kong's first time here at the Qinglong sacred area. Why would he know so much about it? A doubt surfaced in Qin Nan's mind, but since everyone had their own secrets, he decided not to probe further. Sure. Qin Nan nodded his head as his eyes became firm. Once he acquired the primary stones from the cave of the Bloody Serpent, he would rank up the divine battle spirit to the D rank to improve his strength. This trip to the cave of the Bloody Serpent is extremely dangerous. I've asked 2 geniuses to explore the cave together. Sima Kong was overjoyed after hearing Qin Nan's reply. With Qin Nan's help, the danger of the trip would be greatly reduced. Qin Nan nodded his head and proceeded toward the woods together with Sima Kong. After a while, the two of them arrived at a flat area. Chapter 4:17. Genius 1 second. Remember love divided by go divided by little? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 4:19. A kind reminder. The one who spoke was a woman. She had a fair complexion and long black hair that reached her waist. Her figure was graceful, but her face was cold and emotionless like 10,000 years of ice. Love go little say, W. Chu. Almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than other websites, and the updates are faster too. It's all text with no advertisements. Access. Beside the woman was a young man with a face full of pimples, giving him a perverted appearance. This is Yan Zihan, ranked 4th on the custodian's ranking. The other one is Zhou Liqing, ranked 5th on the custodian's ranking. Sima Kong transmitted his voice to Qin Nan. After Yan Zihan spoke, Zhou Liqing spoke in a strange tone. Sima Kong, I'm not trying to criticize you, but I do agree with Qin Nan's talent, but we're heading to the cave of the Bloody Serpent. It's full of forbidding auras and extremely dangerous. How can he help us? Don't worry, Qin Nan will definitely be a great help to us. He won't drag us down. Sima Kong shook his head and said firmly, if he can't help us, I'll give up my share. Whatever. Yan Zihan glanced at Qin Nan and said in a cold tone. Zhou Liqing shut his mouth too. As long as he did not take part in the loot, Sima Kong could even find a martial Emperor Realm cultivator to help him. Qin Nan was not too surprised by this. These two were both geniuses with cultivations of the peak martial ancestor realm, and many other capabilities. On the other hand, he was only a peak martial Emperor Realm cultivator. Even though his actual strength was equivalent to an 8th-layer martial ancestor realm cultivator, it was still too weak compared to these two. As such, he did not say anything. He would rely on his strength to prove himself. Let's go. Sima Kong took out a map and inspected it carefully, before he led the way, followed by the others. Along the way, the group stumbled into many peak martial ancestor realm beasts, but they were all killed by Yan Zihan with a single attack. Qin Nan, on the other hand, was keenly aware that this forest was extremely extraordinary. The deeper they went, the more terrifying the aura became. Deep inside this forest is one of the forbidden areas of the Qinglong mystical ground, the Perpetual Night Forest. In the Perpetual Night Forest, the top 10 overlords of the demon beast list are all there. Sima Kong explained. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization. In the Qinglong mystical ground, there were many forbidden areas, such as the cultivation grounds of the previous sacred leaders, and the cultivation grounds of various experts and beasts. These were all forbidden areas, and martial ancestor realm cultivators were not allowed to enter them without permission. After walking for half an incense's time, Sima Kong shouted, "We're here." Qin Nan immediately raised his head and saw a small hill in the middle of the woods. The whole hill was covered in a blood-red glow, with an intimidating aura. In the middle of the hill was an entrance over 10 zhang long, which seemed to have been carved by a craftsman. Even after the passage of time, it still looked exquisite. So this is the reason why Sima Kong asked me to come here. With his left eye of the divine god of battle, Qin Nan discovered countless forbidding auras inside the cave, each possessing the strength of a peak martial dominator realm cultivator. A slight touch from the forbidding aura would instantly kill the cultivator. Although the cave was not huge, every step was filled with danger. It was most likely that Sima Kong had purposely asked him to use his eye technique to break the forbidding auras and avoid the danger. After being aware of Qin Nan's gaze, Sima Kong let out a hollow laugh, as his expression turned ugly. This map fragment in my hand was left by a senior brother who possessed a powerful eye technique. With the help of the map, we can avoid many dangers, Yan Zihan suddenly said. An ancient sheepskin scroll appeared in her hand. She glanced at it and prepared to move forward. Zihan, wait a moment. At that instant, Zhou Liqing suddenly spoke. He glanced at Qin Nan and said with an indifferent smile, "Junior brother Qin Nan, I believe you're quite capable since Sima Kong is fond of you. Why don't you take a look at where we should start?" Yan Zihan halted in her tracks and stared coldly at Qin Nan. "This is where we should start." Qin Nan's expression remained the same as he pointed at the center of the bloody hole. Zhou Liqing glanced at Yan Zihan in an inquiring manner. Yan Zihan's icy face was filled with astonishment as she said, "This is the right step." Zhou Liqing was startled. It seemed like he had underestimated Qin Nan. "Where should we go next?" Yan Zihan asked. "One step to the left," Qin Nan said with a smile with a calm expression. "Continue, where should we go next?" 3 steps to the right. And 2 steps to the right. In just the blink of an eye, Yan Zihan had asked 10 questions in a row. Each time she heard Qin Nan's answer, her icy face would be filled with astonishment. These 10 times all matched the map in her hand, except for a few small differences. Zhou Liqing was slightly stunned too. The forbidding aura was set up by a peak martial dominator realm blood serpent. Ordinary geniuses with eye techniques would not be able to see through it. And Qin Nan had done it? Gasp! Zhou Liqing took a deep breath. It seemed like he had underestimated Qin Nan, and it was not just a little bit. Yan Zihan's expression gradually recovered, but she remained icy as she said, "Not bad, but there are still a few mistakes. Such a small mistake can bring about fatal danger in this place." After saying this, she walked into the cave of the blood serpent without turning her head back. It was as if in her opinion, Qin Nan was only passable, but he was not enough to be considered important. Zhou Liqing wanted to say something, but he could not bring himself to do it, thus he followed behind her. Cough cough, Qin Nan, I didn't expect them to look down on you so much. Sima Kong felt slightly awkward. He was well aware of the power of Qin Nan's godly eyes, as he was able to see through the forbidding aura of the cave. It would not be a problem for him to break through it, but he was being looked down upon by Yan Zihan and Zhou Liqing. It's fine. Qin Nan let out a smile. The two of them no longer spoke, and began to walk into the cave as well. Yan Zihan and Zhou Liqing led the way with the help of the map in their hands, taking each step with extreme caution. Qin Nan followed behind them with a relaxed expression, as if he was taking a stroll in the park. The 7 deadly steps covers an area of 3 zhang, with a total of 34 steps. Every wrong step will result in death. As for the Blood Dragon Kowtow formation, it covers an area of 1 zhang. You can only pass through it by stepping on the eye of the formation. Any wrong step will trigger the formation. Qin Nan observed the formations and forbidding auras as he walked along the path. Back when he was with the 9 symbolic words, He had seen a lot of array formations and accumulated a lot of experience. Therefore, it was easier for him to understand them now. The entire Blood Flood Dragon's cave was not very long. It was only about 500 feet long. However, the speed of the four was like that of a tortoise crawling over such a short distance. They were extremely cautious. During this period of time, relying on the guidance of the incomplete map, they almost triggered many restrictions. The aura that leaked out caused Yan Zihan and Zhou Liqing to break out in cold sweat. That being said, they did not realize that the map was wrong and Qin Nan was right. After half an hour, the four had finally advanced over 20 zhang. On the walls of the Immortal's cave, there were many shiny stones hanging on the walls, illuminating the place with a myriad of colors. It was incomparably dazzling. There's a formation of the Bridge of Life and Death in front of us. Once it's triggered, we will be killed instantly. There's no way to survive. Follow me closely, be careful. Yan Zihan suddenly spoke. Her feet slowly moved forward, and she was about to land on the ground in front of her. Wait. Chapter 4:18. A genius remembers love in 1 second divided by small? Say Web, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 4:20. Solving the formation with a single finger. No one had expected Qin Nan to lose his mind all of a sudden. Visit. Yan Zihan's movement halted as she snapped. What are you talking about? What's wrong with this step according to the map? There's something wrong with your map. Qin Nan took a deep breath and pointed at a spot 3 inches in front of Yan Zihan's feet. The correct spot is here. As soon as he said this, Yan Zihan and Zhou Liqing's faces were filled with astonishment. The map was left behind by a genius with an outstanding eye technique. How could there be something wrong with his map? This Qin Nan was too much. Don't think you can interfere just because you're a peerless genius. Zhou Liqing straightened his face and snapped. Qin Nan, you better stop messing around. Otherwise, I won't forgive you if anything goes wrong. Yan Zihan's eyes flickered murderously as she stomped her foot without hesitation. Hold it right there. Qin Nan's expression changed as he reached out his claws and knocked her body in place, preventing her from moving. Zhou Liqing and Yan Zihan did not expect Qin Nan to ambush them all of a sudden. Before they could react, they could see Qin Nan stomping on the spot 3 inches in front of them. Are you out of your mind? Stop it right there. Yan Zihan's face turned pale upon seeing this as she yelled. However, before she could finish her sentence, Qin Nan's stomp landed firmly on the spot. Crap. Run. What was done could not be undone. It was too late to be angry or anything else. Yan Zihan and Zhou Liqing instinctively sensed a great danger in their hearts, causing them to swiftly retreat backward. A breath's time. 2 breaths' time. After a period of over 10 breaths' time, their figures finally came to a stop. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please give it a good review. Why? Was there no reaction? Could it be that Qin Nan had made the right choice? Under their stunned gazes, Qin Nan's expression was as calm as ever. He took 4 or 5 steps forward, as if he was walking on flat ground. After he walked past the formation, he turned around and said calmly, Senior sister, there's really something wrong with your map. This formation is called the Sky-Sea Moonlock Formation. If you had stepped on it just now, everything within 5 miles would have been swallowed up by the sea and destroyed. Gentlemen, I've already told you not to underestimate Qin Nan. Sima Kong smiled. The eyes of Yan Zihan and Zhou Liqing were filled with astonishment. They did not expect the peerless genius Qin Nan to possess such a powerful eye technique. Then, even Yan Zihan's face turned slightly red. Earlier, the two of them had looked down on Qin Nan many times. Cough cough, junior brother Qin Nan, please don't mind it too much. Zhou Liqing said with an awkward expression. I apologize for my attitude just now. This time, I'll leave the Gorfine Dragon's cave to you. Everything we obtain inside will be divided equally among the four of us. Yen Zihan immediately regained her cold expression. It's not a big deal. Qin Nan let out a smile. It went without saying that he would not care too much about it. Following this, it was Qin Nan's turn to lead the way. Not only was their speed twice as fast, they did not trigger any forbidding auras along the way, leaving Yen Zihan and Zhou Liqing utterly impressed. We're here. Qin Nan stepped forward and yelled. Sima Kong, Yen Zihan, and Zhou Liqing were also shocked, raising their heads in unison. The interior of the cave suddenly became spacious, with an area of 20 zhang wide. The surrounding walls were glittering brilliantly. In addition to that, deep inside the cave, there was a giant blood-red block of ice. Inside the block of ice were countless magical treasures, weapons, elixirs, and primordial stones. Qin Nan's breathing intensified. With a rough glance, there were at least 600 pieces of primordial stones in the ice. How significant was 600 primary stones? It was equivalent to 6 million contribution points in the Qinglong sacred area. In addition to him, Sima Kong, Yen Zihan, and Zhou Liqing were breathing heavily too. If they were able to acquire such a huge amount of treasure, the benefits would be unimaginable. No, that's not an ice block. It's the heart of the blood serpent. Before its death, the blood serpent used its heart to construct a formation. Sima Kong blurted out after realizing something. As soon as he said this, Yen Zihan and Zhou Liqing's expressions changed greatly. The blood serpent was a beast with the bloodline of the true dragon. Its heart was a rare treasure of the heavens and earth. If its heart was used to construct a formation, even a martial highness would not be able to do anything about it. In other words, they had no idea how to open this mountain of treasures. Break! At that instant, a loud roar could be heard. Qin Nan's figure flickered as he reached out his finger. The tip of his finger was engulfed in flames as he poked at the center of the blood-colored heart. Bang! The powerful blood-colored heart began to vibrate vigorously, as if an atavistic ferocious beast had been awakened. It uttered a series of shocking roars, causing the area within 10 li to tremble vigorously. Following this, the blood-colored heart rapidly turned dim, as if it had lost all its vitality, before it began to melt into drops of blood that flowed to the ground. The treasures encapsulated within the heart began to buzz while emitting powerful auras, causing the entire cave to be filled with the glow of the treasures. This, Sima Kong, Yen Zihan, and Zhou Liqing stared with their eyes open wide. Wasn't this the formation formed by the heart of the blood serpent? Didn't even a martial highness stand a chance against it? How did Qin Nan manage to break it open with a single finger? Could it be that Qin Nan was also a formation master? This blood-colored ice cube is indeed the heart of the blood serpent, but due to the passage of time, its life force has long decayed. Therefore, the power of the formation is only a tenth of its original power. Qin Nan said in a slow tone. His left eye of the divine god of battle was no longer the same as before. Its ability to see through things was utterly terrifying, thus it had no problem breaking open the formation. Gasp! The trio collected their thoughts and inhaled deeply. They glanced at Qin Nan as if he were a monster. Even if it was only a tenth of its original power, it was still quite impressive, right? However, at that instant, the rare phenomenon caused by the shattering of the blood-colored heart swept the area within 10 li, causing many martial ancestor realm beasts to be startled. They immediately glanced toward the scene and swiftly flew toward it. These beasts clearly knew how many treasures were stored inside the cave of the blood serpent, thus they were extremely interested in them. However, the name of the blood serpent emperor and the powerful forbidding aura had long been imprinted in their hearts. Now that the rare phenomenon had taken place, they had no choice but to take a look. Suddenly, a strange little beast scuttled out from the forest. Chapter 419. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Here's a great novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 421. Beasts Stealing the Treasure. The little beast had the appearance of a cat, with 5 golden lines on its forehead. Its aura had yet to reach the Emperor realm. Cotton, flower, candy. Little say, -79XS, it walked forward at a leisurely pace under the gazes of the martial ancestor realm beast. At times, it would suddenly bare its fangs and let out a roar, causing a martial ancestor realm beast to be scared out of its wits, causing it to flee in all directions. After seeing this, its pitch-black eyes were filled with a hint of pride. The little beast continued to walk forward until it reached the blood-colored hill, before it came to a stop and squinted its eyes. Inside the cave. Qin Nan, I didn't expect your eye technique to have reached such a level. Zhou Liqing was the first to speak with a hint of admiration on his face. He had no choice but to be impressed. Yan Zihan's lips moved slightly as if she was trying to say something, but she could not find the words. She hesitated for a moment, causing her face to blush slightly, resulting in an adorable sight. These are all petty tricks. Qin Nan shook his head as he straightened his face and said, "Excuse me, I'm not interested in the rest of the treasures. Can you give me all the primary stones? These primary stones are very important to me." "Not a problem." Zhou Liqing and Yan Zihan shook their heads. They were here for the treasures, not to mention that Qin Nan was the only one responsible for the trip to the cave of the Bloody Serpent. "Thanks." Qin Nan expressed his gratitude in a serious manner, and took the 600 over primary stones without hesitation, before sitting down at the side. "A love go little say ku, let's split the treasures." Sima Kong wore an excited expression as he began to distribute the treasures. After a short while, a trace of a smile appeared on the faces of the 3 of them. Even Yan Zihan was no exception. Their gains from this trip to the Bloody Wyrm's cave were extremely bountiful. Full text reading. The 3 of them were not in a hurry to leave. From the roar of the beasts outside the cave, they could tell that quite a number of demonic beasts had been attracted here. They might as well stay here and refine some spirit herbs to improve their cultivation. I wonder if these 600 primary stones are enough to level up the divine battle spirit. Qin Nan glanced at the trio and mumbled to himself. He then took a deep breath and reached out his hands at lightning speed, shoving the primary stones into his mouth and devouring them all. The sight startled Sima Kong and the others. Their faces were filled with astonishment. This was the first time they had seen someone swallow primordial stones like this. It was simply like a hungry wolf descending the mountain. 10, 20, 70 reads. When Qin Nan had consumed 300 of them, an unexpected change suddenly took place. The divine battle spirit in his body slightly shuddered, as a mysterious feeling arose in Qin Nan's mind. Shua. Qin Nan once again arrived at the boundless darkness, where an ancient world was floating silently. Shush! A stream of chaos chi flew out from the ancient world and entered Qin Nan's body as if it had traveled a few thousand years. "It's finally here." Qin Nan's face was filled with joy. The chaos chi was extremely useful. If he were to merge it with his 7-dragon-lined golden nascent soul, it could improve his cultivation. It seems like the divine battle spirit has undergone some changes after reaching the 10th grade Xian rank. It now requires 300 primary stones to produce a stream of chaos chi. Now that I have over 300 primary stones left, I can produce another stream of chaos chi. With these 2 streams of chaos chi, my nascent soul would be strengthened significantly. Qin Nan's eyes burned passionately. Without hesitation, he reached out his hands once again and shoved the primary stones into his mouth. However, at that instant a black figure dashed into the cave at lightning speed. Before Qin Nan could react, the 300 primary stones in front of him had vanished into thin air. He wasn't the only one. The black figure dashed forward with a whoosh, and the spiritual herbs in front of Sima Kong, Yan Zihan, and Zhou Liqing were all plundered. "Who's there?" At that instant, Qin Nan and his crew were astounded as they glanced toward the source of the noise. The four of them immediately saw a black kitten. After looting everything, it raised the corner of its mouth and let out a sneer. Then, it twisted its buttocks, kicked its hind legs, and rushed out like a bolt of lightning. A beast? A martial Emperor Realm beast? How did it get in here? Countless doubts arose in the minds of Qin Nan and the others. Still trying to run away? Qin Nan cleared his mind as his left eye emitted a thunderous flicker. His face was filled with anger as he stomped his foot on the ground, causing his figure to be engulfed in flames as he swiftly chased after the kitten. Sima Kong, Yan Zihan, and Zhou Liqing were enraged too. How dare you? A demonic beast actually dared to rob them and even taunt them? In the blink of an eye, the four of them rushed out of the cave. However, this little beast that was only at the peak of the martial Emperor realm was surprisingly fast. Even the four of them were unable to catch up to it. In just a few breaths' time, this little black beast had already left the four of them behind by over a li thunder tribulation left eye. Qin Nan uttered a roar as he locked his gaze onto the little black beast's figure. His eyes emitted a thunderous flicker as he teleported himself over a li away and arrived above the little beast. The little black beast was given a great shock by the sudden attack. Its figure emitted a brilliant glow as its speed skyrocketed, dodging the attack by a hair's breadth. Sima Kong, Yan Zihan, and Zhou Liqing immediately made their moves too, executing their attacks and artifacts. The little black beast was immediately dumbfounded. It realized that it had met its match this time. Mumu 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 mumu, the little black beast kept dodging the attacks. At the same time, it kept opening its mouth and letting out a series of cries. Bang! The sky above Qin Nan and the others suddenly darkened as a giant bird with a cultivation of the peak martial ancestor realm descended from the sky, producing a strong gust of wind. The giant bird let out a cry as it discovered the existence of the little black beast, before diving downward and grabbing the little black beast with its claws, before flying away. This sudden turn of events caused the Sima Kong trio's bodies to tremble. A peak martial emperor realm being able to control a beast of the peak martial ancestor realm to rescue them at such a quick speed, this little black beast must have a formidable background. The little black beast once again wore a mocking smile as it was out of danger, as if it was extremely proud of itself. How bold! A shocking fury burst out from Qin Nan's figure. That was 300 primordial stones. Who knew how much effort it would take to obtain that many primordial stones? How dare it rob us? I don't care who you are. Come down here. Qin Nan uttered a roar as he spat out his nascent soul under the blank gazes of Sima Kong and the others. The nascent soul was engulfed in flames, which transformed into a fireball that was fired at the bird's wings. The big bird let out a cry of pain and couldn't help but let go of its claws. The little black beast fell from the sky. Its face was full of complacency and ridicule, but now it was frozen on its face, and its black eyes were dazed. Chapter 420. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 422. The Tide of Beasts. Obviously, it did not expect a mere peak martial emperor realm cultivator to be able to snipe a peak martial ancestor realm beast. A sense of danger that it hadn't felt for a long time exploded out from its heart, causing a trace of panic to appear on its little face. Light blossomed from its body, and it transformed into a pair of incomplete wings that flapped with a poochie sound as it attempted to fly away. That's fast. The peak martial ancestor realm giant bird collected its thoughts and uttered a roar, causing its feathers to fall, which transformed into a rainstorm encapsulating Qin Nan's figure. Get down here! Qin Nan's figure was engulfed in thunderous flames, as the Tenjong long cloak was flung upward, shattering the feathers into pieces. The fleeing little beast was dragged into the cloak too, before it was dragged toward Qin Nan. "Spit it all out." Qin Nan reached out his hand and grabbed the neck of the little beast. His eyes were spitting flames as he emitted a tremendous murderous aura, like the god of thunder. The peak martial ancestor realm giant bird in the air was enraged, as it tried to dive downward, but was intimidated by Qin Nan's aura, thus it did not dare to attack recklessly, as it was afraid of hurting the little beast. Sima Kong and the others wore blank expressions on their faces. It was their first time seeing Qin Nan in such a furious state. Mumu 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 mumu, the little black beast regained its calm and showed no sign of fear. Instead, it was holding its head high as it gestured with its paws. It was telling Qin Nan that it was impossible to make it spit it out. Furthermore, "Don't be so full of yourself, I have someone backing me up." "Someone backing you up? Let's see if you're going to spit it out." The flames in Qin Nan's heart exploded instantly. "Someone backing you up? Trying to steal my pills? I don't care who the F***k you are." He instantly swung his fist, which was engulfed in flames as he smashed downward. Bang, 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 bang. A series of loud crashes could be heard in the woods. Full text reading: the big bird circling in the sky was stunned, and so was the little black beast. This human, he actually dared to make a move? Moo moo. As the black little beast cried out in pain, it erupted with a monstrous anger and let out an ear-piercing shriek. In an instant, the entire ancient forest froze, and the ground in all directions began to tremble. Not good. The expressions of Sima Kong and the other two changed drastically. Their guess was not wrong. This black little beast had a great origin. Boom. Following a loud crash, the sky above them suddenly darkened as a giant bird over 40 zhang long with a pair of fiery wings flew toward them while emitting a terrifying suppression of the martial dominator realm into the surroundings. This demonic beast was a demonic emperor, a peak demonic emperor at that. Fire-winged bird, it's the fire-winged bird. The faces of Sima Kong and the others were filled with astonishment. The fiery-winged bird was ranked second among the beasts of the Qinglong mystical ground. It possessed the bloodline of the vermilion bird, and the strongest among its tribe had reached the half-martial highness realm. Bang, 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 bang. A series of explosions took place in the sky as one after another fiery-winged bird arrived from a great distance away, causing the sky within 8 li to be dyed red, as if the apocalypse had arrived. In the blink of an eye, 8 fiery-winged birds had arrived. The 8 fiery-winged birds glanced downward and immediately saw Qin Nan holding the little black beast hostage. Their faces were filled with rage as they raised their heads and uttered furious roars. Bang! The surrounding space began to vibrate vigorously due to the terrifying roars, as if it would shatter into pieces at any second. At that instant, the entire ancient forest began to vibrate vigorously, as the martial ancestor realm beasts let out shocking roars as if they were being summoned. Following a series of whooshes, the entire place was filled with their presence. In the blink of an eye, the area within 10 li was filled with 8 fiery-winged birds and over 40 enormous martial ancestor realm beasts. Who dares to be so bold? That was not the end of it, as an icy roar exploded deep within the sky. Above the 8 fiery-winged birds and the beasts, a giant stormy cloud suddenly appeared, covering an area of 13 li. A giant beast with 4 muscular limbs and the shape of a cow with lightning blue fur appeared and glanced in Qin Nan's direction with a pair of thunderous eyes. At that instant, Sima Kong and the others were stunned. Sky Thunderous Beast? Wasn't that the Sky Thunderous Beast? Why was it here too? The Sky Thunderous Beast, the top beast of the Qinglong mystical ground, capable of controlling the sky thunder, extremely terrifying. With the Sky Thunderous Beast leading the way, the 8 fiery-winged birds, and over 40 peak martial ancestor realm beasts. Even an ordinary Martial Highness realm expert would not dare to offend them. Such a lineup was all because of the arrival of the black little beast. Die! The sky thunderous beast spat out a thunderbolt from its mouth, which descended from the sky at a terrifying speed, aiming at Qin Nan's life. How dare you, let's die together! Qin Nan swiftly recovered from his astonishment, as his hands emitted thunderous flames, gripping the neck of the black little beast tightly. He clearly knew that he could only rely on the black little beast to save his life. Lightning of the Martial Highness realm? Thunderous flames? The eyes of the sky thunderous beast flickered with astonishment. With a thought, the thunderbolt in the sky dissipated. Qin Nan had made the right bet, as they did not dare to act recklessly. Let's go! Qin Nan suddenly turned his head around and yelled at Sima Kong and his crew. Sima Kong and his crew were still immersed in astonishment, unable to collect their thoughts. No one is allowed to leave. The eyes of the sky thunderous beast flickered with a thunderous glow as the surrounding area was sealed off. I'll bear the consequences of my own actions. If you don't want me to die together with it, let them go. Qin Nan's hair danced wildly, as he showed no sign of fear facing the tide of beasts. Those who have offended the saint will not be allowed to leave. The sky thunderous beast showed no sign of backing off, as it continued to seal off the surrounding space. The eyes of the 8 fiery wings birds and over 40 martial ancestor beasts turned icy as their auras surged, as if they were going to unleash shocking attacks at any second, destroying the area within 10 li. Is that so? Qin Nan showed no hesitation as he pinched downward with his hands, causing the black little beast to utter a painful cry. Wait, the sky thunderous beast's expression changed slightly. It did not expect this man who was as weak as an ant to be so crazy. Judging from his ferocious expression, it had no doubt that Qin Nan would kill its saint. I'll do it! The sky thunderous beast withheld its anger and said, causing the seal to dissipate instantly. Let's go! Qin Nan turned around and yelled once again. Qin Nan, let's! Sima Kong, Yan Zihan, and Zhou Liqing's footsteps stiffened as if they were covered in mud. Let's go! Qin Nan roared fiercely. Let's go! Sima Kong clenched his teeth after seeing Qin Nan's ferocious expression, before turning around and leaving the place. Yan Zihan and Zhou Liqing withheld their thoughts and swiftly left the place. The three sprinted all the way, and after covering a distance of 2 miles, they turned their heads around and saw Qin Nan's figure. Although he looked extremely weak in front of the enormous beasts, he was as firm as a pine tree. Chapter 421. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 423. The copper mirror shows its power. Qin Nan was not as relaxed as he appeared to be. Facing the ferocious beasts, his mind was extremely tense, and he did not dare to let his guard down. For more information, visit www. These were 9-headed martial dominators and over 40 martial ancestor beasts. If he were to let his guard down, these beasts could easily tear him into pieces. As for regret? Of course not. This little son of a bitch dared to rob his primary stones. Even if a Martial Highness realm beast was here, he would still kill him. A dragon had a reverse scale. Once it was touched, the heavens and earth would crumble. Since you're a righteous man, let go of our saint at once, and we'll leave you with a complete corpse. The sky thunderous beast slowly spoke. Leave me with a complete corpse? A cold grin appeared on Qin Nan's face as he said, Your so-called saint stole my primary stones for no reason. I only wanted it to spit them out, I had no intention of killing it. What crime am I guilty of? Who would have thought that the sky thunderous beast, the fiery-winged bird, and the rest of the beasts would become enraged upon hearing this? You dare to harm our saint, just because of a few primary stones? How bold of you! Humph, it's your honor that our saints stole your primary stones. At that instant, a cold harumph could be heard coming from the sky. Following this, the space in the sky began to crumble rapidly, as an old man engulfed in flames stepped out from it. The suppression of the martial highness realm instantly swept the place. Qin Nan's expression changed instantly. The old man was the tribe leader of the fiery-winged bird, the strongest among them, whose cultivation had reached the half-martial highness realm. Crap! A sense of danger rose in Qin Nan's heart. Without hesitation, he pinched the little black beast with his giant hand. At that instant, the old man had already made his move. With a grab with his left hand, his palm traveled across the sky and arrived before Qin Nan at a terrifying speed. Before Qin Nan could make his move, the little beast was grabbed by him. Kill him! The old man gave the order without blinking his eyes. Boom! The space within 10 li became restless as the sky thunderous beast, the 8 fiery winged birds, and over 40 martial ancestor beasts unleashed terrifying attacks, which felt like an ancient ocean surging toward Qin Nan. With such a strike, nothing within a 5-kilometer radius would be able to escape. Gu Jing, why aren't you making a move yet? At this critical juncture, Qin Nan let out a long howl. Alright, you owe me 10 strands of chaos chi. In Qin Nan's sea of consciousness, the cold female voice resounded from the bronze mirror. At that instant, an ancient glow burst out of Qin Nan's figure, which transformed into a glamorous figure, as if a peerless martial monarch had descended upon the world. You bastards dare to be impudent? You're courting death. That lithe figure spat out shocking thunder, and her aura was like a rainbow. It was as if she was the only one in this world. With a wave of her hand, the attacks that filled the sky were all shattered into nothingness. At this moment, the flaming old man was stunned, and so were all the other demonic beasts. How was this possible? A mere peak martial emperor realm cultivator was able to summon such an expert? Could this person be the saint of the Qinglong sacred area? Drop to your knees! The glamorous figure uttered a roar with an imperious aura, as if she were the ruler of the 9 heavens. The sky thunderous beast, the 8 fiery winged birds, and over 40 martial ancestor beasts dropped from the sky with a thud. They lay flat on the ground while trembling in fear, not daring to make any noise. The old man whose figure was engulfed in flames was astounded. No way. Such a cultivation was definitely not from the Qinglong sacred area. Qin Nan was stunned too. He knew that the copper mirror was extraordinary, but he did not expect the woman inside the copper mirror to possess such a terrifying cultivation. Drop to your knees. Although it was impossible to see the appearance of the glamorous figure, it felt like her eyes were emitting an icy glow as she glared at the old man. The old man's figure shuddered violently. Despite being a half-martial highness realm expert, his heart was filled with a sense of submission. Senior, please be merciful. At that instant, a hoarse voice could be heard, as the surrounding space was torn apart once again, as an old man with a weakened aura slowly walked out from it. The old man looked extremely aged, as if he would disappear at any second. However, the aura emitted from the old man's body was even stronger than the fiery old man. Qin Nan's heart shuddered violently. This person was none other than the tribe leader of the Sky Thunderous Beast tribe, the strongest expert of the Qinglong mystical ground, a half-martial highness realm presence. Senior, if I'm not mistaken, I'm afraid you're only an illusionary figure, right? Besides, Senior, I can sense the aura of the beast tribe from your body, which is somehow related to us. The old man spoke in a slow tone. That's right, the glamorous figure said in a cold tone. As a sky thunderous beast, the primary force of the sky thunderous beast is close to evolving into the lightning highness realm. However, your lifespan is approaching. The old man's expression stiffened. The figure was right. It did not have much time left in its lifespan. The glamorous figure scanned the crowd and said, "The saint of your two tribes, whose bloodline is quite impressive, I'll spare your lives today for the sake of his ancestors. By the way, this young man's name is Chin Nan, and he has the fortunate encounter for you to rank up." After saying those words, the alluring figure vanished from sight. Everything in the surroundings returned to silence. The beasts that were kneeling on the ground had yet to recover from the terror on their faces. The fiery old man and the tribe leader of the Sky Thunderous Beast tribe were stunned on the spot. As for the little black beast, it trembled in its spot as if it had just met its senior when the copper mirror had displayed its power, not daring to act recklessly. Chin Nan was stunned too. The series of events today had greatly exceeded his expectations. He had never expected that the copper mirror, which had always been so lackluster, would suddenly display its might today. However, it seemed that the mysterious woman in the copper mirror was somehow related to the demon tribe. That being said, what did the copper mirror mean by the last sentence? You, the weakened old man and the fiery old man glanced at Chin Nan's figure with a hint of astonishment in their eyes. The senior had mentioned that the fortunate encounter for them to rank up was in the hands of a mere peak martial emperor realm disciple? How was this possible? Despite their doubts, they had no choice but to believe it. The reason being that they could sense the auras of their ancestors from the senior's body. The ancestor of the Sky Thunderous Beast, the ancestor of the fiery winged bird, and the others. As such, the mysterious senior was able to make the beasts drop to their knees with a single sentence, even though she did not use her cultivation. Among the beast tribes, bloodlines were the most important factor. The stronger the bloodline, the stronger the aura alone would be. Chapter 422. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 424 Thunder Marrow, Fiery Court. Chin Nan frowned slightly. Please go to this book, access. The copper mirror had mentioned that he could help the old man to rank up, but the old man was a half-martial highness realm cultivator. How was he going to help him? After pondering for a moment, Chin Nan suddenly realized that the Chaos Chi was the only thing he could possibly use. I'm not sure if that's what she was referring to. Under the gaze of the terrifying beasts, Chin Nan raised his hand. A gray-white aura was emitted from his palm. The eyes of the old man with a weakened aura and the old man engulfed in flames widened as soon as he saw the aura. That's primary chi. That's the primary chi. The old man with a weak aura cried out in shock. His face was filled with disbelief. He clearly knew what the primary chi represented. As for the rest of the beasts, although they had no idea what the primary chi represented, they could sense that it would bring great benefits to them if they were able to devour the primary chi. Chin Nan's eyes were filled with astonishment. He did not expect the Chaos Chi to be this precious. Not only was it useful for improving the nascent soul, the copper mirror needed it too, and now the beasts were in need of it too. Chin Nan. No, Mr. Chin Nan, I have a favor to ask. The old man with a weakened aura no longer resembled a half-martial highness realm cultivator, who was flustered. Is it possible for Mr. Chin Nan to give the Chaos Chi to me? Upon saying this, its eyes were filled with a pleading look. Now that its time was almost up, if it were to acquire the Chaos Chi, even though it would not rank up to the martial highness realm immediately, it would greatly improve its cultivation and extend its lifespan, giving it a chance to rank up to the martial highness realm. Continue. The weak old man was not the only one. The small pitch-black beast and the flame elder were also staring intently at the wisp of primal Chaos Chi. If it was not because they still had a trace of rationality in their hearts, it was likely that they would have already charged forward. Full-text reading. Chin Nan subconsciously wanted to refuse. He did not have a good impression of this group of demonic beasts. If it were not for the copper mirror, he would have died long ago. The old man with a weak aura immediately blurted out after being aware of Qin Nan's intention, "If Mr. Qin is willing to give the stream of chaos chi to me, I can give you the precious treasure of our tribe, a drop of thunder marrow as compensation. I noticed that you have mastered a hint of the force of the tribulation of the martial highness realm. If you were to consume this thunder marrow, it would bring great benefits to your cultivation." Hearing those words, the blazing old man and the other monstrous beasts were all greatly alarmed. That was the lightning marrow. Every sky thunderous beast would only be able to form a single drop of it after breaking through to the demon emperor realm. It contained the secrets of the sky thunderous beast, so it was obvious how valuable it was. From the looks of the crowd, Qin Nan immediately realized that the thunder marrow was anything but ordinary. He hesitated for a moment before he made up his mind and said, "I can give you this stream of chaos chi, but I have a condition." "What conditions?" The old man with a weak aura remained calm, as he had already prepared himself to be ripped off. "This little asshole, you better spit out the 300 primary stones." Qin Nan's aura changed tremendously as he pointed at the little beast with a murderous aura. The little beast uttered a strange cry furiously. How stingy was this human being? Wasn't it just 300 primary stones? Was there a need to be so greedy? "Love go little say, Chew." The old man with a weak aura and the crowd were startled. They initially thought that Qin Nan would demand an exorbitant price, but they did not expect it to be so simple. "Little black." The old man with a weak aura straightened his face. The little beast shuddered violently. Although it was not afraid of anything, it was still slightly intimidated by the old man. It immediately curled its lips and spat out the 300 primary stones. After that, it even bared its fangs at Qin Nan and let out a roar. Qin Nan did not even glance at it as he sent it flying with a kick. The beasts in the surroundings could feel their lips twitching. "Here you go." Qin Nan did not waste any time, as he flicked the stream of chaos chi into the old man's hand. It really is quintessence energy. After absorbing the strand of chaotic energy, the face of the old man that was in a dispirited state instantly flushed red, and his face glowed with vitality. This state caused him to be unable to refrain from being overjoyed. "Thank you, young Master Qin. This is lightning marrow." With a flick of its finger, a drop of blue liquid flew out into the air. At that instant it was as if the entire area within 3 li had darkened, as countless thunderous roars could be heard. Qin Nan's left eye immediately discovered that the drop of liquid contained a strong force of thunder, which originated from the ancient era. It was slightly stronger than the force of the tribulation of the martial highness realm. "It's indeed a precious artifact." Qin Nan wore a joyful expression as he swiftly stored the thunder marrow into his bag and prepared to leave the place. However, at that instant, the old man engulfed in flames let out a cough and said, "Mr. Qin, how did you get this stream of primary chi?" "Old flame, don't even think about it. This primary chi is extremely rare." The old man shook his head and said, "It's already a great fortune to be able to obtain a stream of it." The old man engulfed in flames wore a dull expression. He was aware of this, thus he had asked Qin Nan with a glimmer of hope. "The chaos chi, huh? As long as I have enough primordial stones, I can get it," Qin Nan said calmly. As soon as these words came out, it was like a bolt of lightning. The old man with a weak aura, the old man engulfed in flames, and the little beast were dumbfounded. That was the primary chi. He only needed primordial stones to get it? Are you kidding me? Is this real? The old man engulfed in flames breathed heavily as he spat out 2 streams of flames from his nostrils. "Of course it's real," Qin Nan calmly said. He had told them about the chaos chi as these beasts were in need of it. Since they were in need of it, Qin Nan would not mind cooperating with them to acquire more primary stones and resources similar to the thunder marrow. "Mr. Qin, I have over 100 primary stones here. Would you mind if I show you?" the old man immediately took out all the primary stones he had. In addition to him, the old man with a weak aura and the rest of the beasts took out their primary stones too. There were over 500 primary stones in total. Qin Nan was aware of the beast's hesitation, thus he withheld his joy and sat down with his legs crossed. His hands moved at lightning speed as he began to devour the primary stones. If anyone were here, they would witness a shocking sight. A group of terrifying beasts stared with their eyes open wide, as they stared at the peak martial emperor realm cultivator devouring the primary stones continuously, not daring to miss a single detail. 2 hours later, Qin Nan had devoured the 500 primary stones and his own 300 primary stones, resulting in a total of 900 primary stones, producing 3 streams of chaos chi. I still haven't leveled up. Qin Nan rose from the ground as his eyes flickered with disappointment. The old man with a weak aura, the old man engulfed in flames, and the rest of the beasts were aware of his disappointment, causing their hearts to skip a beat as a bad feeling arose within them. Did he fail to acquire the chaos chi? Mr. Qin. The old man forced a smile. It's quite difficult to acquire a stream of chaos chi with over 500 primary stones. Don't worry about it. That being said, if Mr. Qin were to acquire the chaos chi, I hope you won't forget about me. I'll surely compensate you with something valuable. Before he could say the word change, Qin Nan let out a calm laugh as he reached out his hand. A stream of chaos chi slowly rose from his palm. The old man's voice stiffened. All the demonic beasts' faces changed drastically. Their faces were filled with shock. It's actually possible. Chapter 423. A Genius Will Remember Love in a Second Divided by Small? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 425. Cultivating, Waiting Gasp. The fiery old man and the withered old man inhaled deeply once again. Love Go Small Seg Co-79XS. Being able to create chaos chi with primary stones, how significant was that? It was unimaginable. Mr. Qin, this is the precious treasure of our tribe, the fiery core. It can only be formed after our tribe evolves thrice, and contains a hint of the secrets of the phoenix flame. The fiery old man flipped his hand without hesitation, causing a heart made of flames to appear on his palm. The appearance of the heart caused the temperature of the surroundings to skyrocket, as if the space itself was about to be refined. The withered old man hesitated to speak. Sure. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he flicked his hand to get rid of the stream of chaos chi. Young Master Qin, is it possible for you to prepare more primal chaos chi for me? I can give you more thunder essences. The withered old man blurted out after seeing this. If he could obtain 5 more streams of chaos chi, he would be able to rank up to the martial highness realm. It's fine as long as you have primary stones, Qin Nan said smilingly. The thunder essences and the fiery core were extremely beneficial to his cultivation. If he could obtain more of them, it would be extremely beneficial to him. Furthermore, by allowing these terrifying beasts to obtain primary stones, it would increase the speed of his divine battle spirits rank up. The withered old man and the fiery old man were troubled. Unlike the blood dragon beast, they were not fond of shiny objects, and primary stones were unable to help them with their cultivation. As such, their tribes did not have any primary stones. The 500 primary stones from before were only given to them on a daily basis. Qin Nan was slightly disappointed after learning the reason, but he soon calmed down. He had benefited a lot from encountering these 2 tribes of beasts. Cotton candy. Mr. Qin, why don't you come to our tribe's territory and cultivate in seclusion? The withered old man invited. Qin Nan thought about it for a moment, but he didn't refuse and followed in. The tribe of the sky thunderous beasts was located in the depths of the ancient forest, surrounded by the thunderous wood. The thunderous aura was extremely strong, which was very suitable for his cultivation. Qin Nan did not waste any more time talking to the withered old man, the blazing old man, and the other demonic cultivators. He sat down cross-legged and began his seclusion. Begin. Qin Nan took out the drop of thunder essence and fire heart and swallowed them all in one go. Boom! A powerful force of thunder and fire immediately exploded in his body and merged with the seven-dragon golden nascent soul. Qin Nan's focus was fully immersed in comprehending the secrets of the sky thunder and the vermilion bird flame. While Qin Nan was cultivating in seclusion, a tremendous change took place in the Qinlong mystical ground, as countless shocking battles took place. However, Qin Nan was clueless about it. A month later, under the thunderwood, Qin Nan's eyes sprang open. Bang! Countless thunderbolts intertwined with one another in his left eye, which transformed into a brilliant starry sky. An atavistic thunderbolt was fired from the sky, resulting in a tremendous suppression, as if it were the thunderous eye of the sky. Whoosh! Following this, Qin Nan's figure was engulfed in flames. The flames were incredibly scorching, as if they were going to burn everything into ashes, resulting in a great boost to its power. The thunderous eye and fiery flesh have been completed. Time to upgrade the nascent soul. Qin Nan uttered a roar. He unleashed the essence of the thunder essence and the fire heart, merging them with the seven-dragon golden nascent soul. In the next breath's time, the seven-dragon golden nascent soul emitted 7 shocking dragon roars. Countless golden glows were emitted from the nascent soul, which intertwined with one another, forming 2 golden dragon lines that coiled around the nascent soul. Bang! Qin Nan's aura instantly skyrocketed, which was equivalent to the 9th layer martial ancestor realm. I've finally reached the 9-dragon golden nascent soul. Now, I only need to merge with the Chaos Chi to transform it into a 10-dragon golden nascent soul, which would grant me a cultivation equivalent to the 10th layer martial ancestor realm. When the time comes, I'll be able to trigger the tribulation of the heavens and earth and achieve the martial dominator realm. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he unleashed the remaining 2 streams of Chaos Chi. At that instant, his mind shuddered as a jade-like hand reached out from the copper mirror and grabbed the 2 streams of Chaos Chi and devoured them, leaving Qin Nan with a blank expression. You still owe me 8 streams. Following the icy voice, the copper mirror fell into a dead silence once again. Qin Nan was left speechless. However, the copper mirror had helped him greatly this time, thus it was reasonable for him to give her the 2 streams of Chaos Chi. Screw it, it's been over a month. It's time for me to come out from seclusion. Qin Nan shook his head as his eyes emitted a murderous intent all of a sudden. Previously, he had been hunted down by Yang Taitian. Now that his strength had improved, he could easily crush Yang Taitian. Mr. Qin, congratulations on the improvement of your cultivation. At that instant, the old man with a weak aura arrived in midair and smilingly said. In the past month, his aura had not weakened at all. Instead, it was full of life force, causing his cultivation to become even more immeasurable. Mr. Qin, I've yet to tell you my name. I'm Lei Bao. The old man continued, I believe Mr. Qin is taking part in the grand competition of the 16 mountains? Here is a badge. If Mr. Qin is interested in trading thunder marrows in the future, you can contact me through this badge. Of course, if you encounter any danger, you can also contact me through the badge. Our tribe of sky thunderous beasts will provide you with our full assistance. Young Master Qin, this old man is called Huoba. This is the badge of our fire-wing bird. If you use this badge to find us, we will definitely do our best to help you. The Fire Elder's body also crossed the empty space and landed. The reason why they were willing to do so was because of Qin Nan's Chaos Chi. As long as they could maintain a good relationship with Qin Nan, they would be able to acquire more Chaos Chi in the future. If they had enough Chaos Chi, the future of the two races would be unimaginable. The martial highness realm, martial sacred realm, or even higher realms would not be a dream. Qin Nan held the two badges in his hand and was stunned for a moment, before he collected his thoughts. These were two great tribes. The sky thunderous beasts and the fiery winged birds had a total of over 30 beasts, each of which had reached the peak martial dominator realm, not to mention Lei Bao and Hua Ba, whose strength was equivalent to the half-martial highness realm. With such a powerful faction, they would not be inferior to a martial highness realm cultivator. With the support of two great tribes, who would he be afraid of in the grand competition of the 16 mountains? Regardless of whether it was Yang Taitian or the other geniuses, even if they were to team up, even if Yang Fengzhu were to show up in person, Qin Nan would not be worried at all. Thank you, tribe leaders. Qin Nan withheld the excitement in his heart and brought his fists together. Mr. Qin, you're being too courteous. Lei Bao and Hua Ba were slightly surprised. After all, in their eyes, such a small help was not worth mentioning. After chatting with Lei Bao and Hua Ba for a while, Qin Nan did not stay any longer and swiftly returned to the place. As soon as he arrived at the cave of the Shuesho, a surprised voice could be heard. Qin Nan, you're still alive, you're still alive. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.